We're living our truth now. Crystal, what?
Krista who?
Christadelphian?
Did you say Christian Dolphin? So are you from Philadelphia?
Welcome to the Life After Leaving podcast, an ex-Christadelphian podcast. Hello, heathens, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Zinnia. Today's guest is Ben. Thank you for joining us today, Ben.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great. I've been listening to the podcast since the beginning. It's great to see you in person. You actually have a face and a body and all those things.
I do. I am actually a real person. I'm not just AI. And yes, I remember you've been listening since the beginning because you're one of the listeners who sends me like little voice notes and stuff. I was like, this one really made me laugh. I was like, thank you. I appreciate the encouragement. So today, I'd like to hear your story of becoming an ex-Christadelphian. So we'll go through your experience as a Christadelphian, what the process of leaving looked like for you, and where you're at now in life, and anything you want to share with people who may be going through a similar journey. So before we get started, could you share what region of the world you were in and how long it's been since you left the Christadelphians?
I currently live in Portland, Oregon. Been up here for 2 years, and I left the Christadelphians about 14 years ago when I left Australia.
Wow. Oh, it was a clean break there, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear all about your story. So let's get started with your experience as a Christadelphian. So were you born into the group?
I was. I was born in Sydney, Australia, and I was raised my entire life in the Riverwood Christadelphian ecclesia, which is kind of inner suburbs of Sydney. And I don't know if they're that famous, but Riverwood's pretty, it's kind of one of those ecclesias that people know about.
Is it just a large one, or?
It's not huge, but in Sydney there's not like a lot of like a real big kind of Christadelphian churches, and I would say Riverwood's probably in the sort of top 5 of the biggest ecclesias there. It was part of the Logos. You've talked about Logos and Shield. Logis being the kind of the conservatives, and Shieldies being the more liberal ones. It was Logos, so it was really conservative.
Ooh, fun.
Most of the church was my family, as I think,
This is all hitting all the classic points. Born into it. I saw my family every week, and there was lots of rules.
Yep. And we were, we were really committed. My dad, spoke all around Australia. My grandfather on my mother's side is an international speaker. I know you don't really use last names, but I can also reveal those people as well, if the curiosity is too much. So, I was sort of born into kind of Christadelphian royalty in some ways. My family is well known. I used to joke that I was related to the Mansfields on both sides of my family.
Oh, no.
And the Mansfields were, a big Christadelphian family in Australia.
Yeah, there's some prominent names there, yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your childhood? What sticks out to you if someone asked you to describe your childhood as a Christadelphian?
I think there were so many parts that were good, I think that one of the things belonging to a church community like the Christadelphians is the sense of belonging you have. But it's your entire life in many ways, right? It's kind of like on Sunday, it's 9:15 at Sunday school, and then 11 a.m. is a memorial meeting, and then people come back to your house for lunch often, and you have your time in the afternoon, and you go back for 7:30 for the gospel proclamation lecture, and then once you're a teenager, after the lecture, you would go out to, supper after, like teens would have supper and kind of go around. So that was just Sunday, and then Wednesday nights were the Bible study nights, and it sort of vacillated my childhood between you would go to the ecclesial hall for those, or you would go to someone's house. It kind of
a little more casual.
Yeah, a little more casual for sure.
Maybe more intimate, we'll say.
Yeah. So that was Wednesday nights, and then Friday nights. Once you kind of got to youth group again, once you got teenage years, you had youth group on Friday nights, and then pretty regularly there was something on a Saturday to do. You would be going to some sort of ecclesial outing or a sport day or youth group or whatever it was. So it was pretty much kind of entire life. And there, because my dad was a speaker and we traveled, I knew so many people.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
all over Australia, and I had friends from everywhere. And there was Bible schools. I think they were like, I don't remember exactly if it was like 3 or 4 times a year. The Rathmines Bible School was the classic one.
Okay, what other ones did you go to?
I never did any of the big Adelaide ones. I missed like Hebron and all the kind of the famous ones over there. I never did those. But because my dad traveled and spoke, we went to a lot of like family or ecclesial camps or what have you. And then, of course, once you got to the teens, there was some like really big conferences that you can kind of go to. And I definitely remember really fondly a lot of those youth conferences because they were pretty wild, you know.
You say wild, but we're talking about a church, sir.
But
can you is that the correct word? Explain yourself.
No.
I don't think there were drunken ragers here.
I mean, I've got those stories.
There?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There were definitely times when kids would jump out of, especially Rathmines, which has barbed wire. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of going there.
I've only heard about it, but I've never been to Australia at all, so that was all out of my realm.
Yeah, Rathmines is like an old like army base.
So you got what, drunk and dared each other to go over the barbed wire fence or something? Like, yeah,
you jump outside the barbed wire fence and then run around outside. I got stuck outside one night for the whole of the night because they knew that people had broken out from the camp. So they were like
guarding it.
They were guarding the entrance to get back in, and so you had no choice but to basically stay out all night.
Their attempt to keep people in actually kept them out. Funny. That actually sounds like a good analogy for just the whole church in general.
Yeah, it was hilarious. That was, I think, one time. I know it's a long time ago. Childhood is quite a long time ago now, but I remember once one of my friends. I think it might have been the first time that I was allowed to go and sleep with my friends in our own room at Bible camp.
Okay, away from your parents.
Away from my parents, and then some of I wouldn't say them my friends, but my contemporaries, my peers.
It's usually kind of age segregated, and you were kind of generally with people your age and gender.
Yeah, so some of those people who I wasn't super close to told me that they got into trouble a few Bible schools ago, and they had to go in front of the committee, and they had to be like told off and told how they're supposed to behave. And one of the things they said to me was go and find nice friends and be more like Ben Gilmore. And that was my kind of name I was born with, and it was such a shocking thing to me because in my head, like I didn't think of myself as the good kid,
Wow, but the other adults are setting up as an example to the other young guys.
So that Bible school, I went on a solo mission, and I did all this weird stuff. I made this monument in the middle of the basketball court in the middle of the night, and I went around because I knew all of the people who were on the board, on the elder board. And I kind of went to their rooms and put up little signs on their doors that says, "You can give us fences, but you can't give us faith."
Adorable.
I know.
All right. So it sounds like you started chafing a little bit under those expectations when you realized that you had been a little too in line. But maybe you're also a teen, so I think any teen would do that, honestly.
Right. I think that's what your teens are for, is to differentiate, is to try and figure out who you are and to figure out that, in a little bit of opposition to your parents. That's natural. That's what we're trying to push the boundaries. And I think that's a place where the Christadelphians, and honestly any church community, struggles with that idea because it's based upon, fitting in and following the line and all that kind of stuff. And so they have a hard time with that. And it is really interesting to me that some of my contemporaries, some of those people who told me that at that particular Bible school, have gone on to be incredibly devout, Christians, even though
they took the lesson to heart.
Even though they weren't taking it seriously as teenagers. They were like smoking pot and getting out and getting drunk and kind of not paying any attention. No, I saw the
same thing in my family. The one who was probably the one everyone thought was the least likely to stay Christadelphian is still in it and went like extra conservative. And then the ones who were like the golden child, like perfect and so devout and, missionary work, they're the ones who left. And it's like, whoa, none of us would have saw that coming when we were younger. It was just a total switch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think to me, I always struggled with the belonging part of it because I had questions. And I knew that questions weren't welcome and the questions made people uncomfortable. And, even from a very young age, I
in Sunday school?
Yeah, even from Sunday school, I'd ask questions I think kind of, made people go, ooh, we don't know the answer to that one.
And we're not supposed to not know either, which is the
right.
part.
Right.
We've got all the answers here. We have the truth.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. I come back to that every day. Capital T truth.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I struggled with belonging like all the way through there. My teens was definitely where I learned that you could split your life down the middle.
Oh, like doing the church face and then the school face and all that kind of stuff.
100%. I'm not here to clean up my story. I definitely was that kid. I had a girlfriend at school and a girlfriend at church.
That's okay. Wow. But
the gasp.
scandalous, Ben.
Well, I'd learned to be a hypocrite. I'd learned that was the way you could do it.
But it's kind of funny because I feel like it sounds like you grew out of it, so it's okay. But I feel like some adults have not, who are still in church, where they're like a bastard at home, but then at church they're like, oh, at the podium, like preaching perfection. Like I feel like I would rather you be able to admit that and learn from it, and to acknowledge that can happen in that environment when you're kind of set up to be perfect, but no one knows what's going on at home, kind of thing.
Yeah. It's not based on honesty.
Or genuine, like being a genuine person.
Yeah. And I think that's been kind of part of my work as an adult, and kind of it's that nature and nurture thing, right? Like what came first. But I think I've always, been striving to be a person who's authentic, and I think it's partly that a reaction to my childhood, and particularly a reaction to my teenage years, where I really, I think there was authenticity in both of those parts of me. Like I think weirdly enough, inside myself is a person who I think really longs for some of the answers to the questions. And I'm a philosopher, and I'm an artist. I'm a songwriter. That's what I do.
You're
and
sensitive.
100%. Yes, I am.
You at first you're like, then you're like, yeah, actually. Believe me, I've listened to your music. I know. Honestly, one of your songs, I was listening to it and I had to turn it down because it was making my heart hurt and I was feeling too many feelings. So I assume you'll take that as a compliment, but I was like, oh, I can't. This is too much right now. Too many feelings.
Well, I am honored for sure, because that music is about feelings. And yeah, I think a lot of my teenage years was that. It was just like my feelings were big. I had a lot of big feelings about everything from life to faith and spirituality to all the things. But yeah, so I think that split really occurred to me in teenage years, and I had a really hard time. I don't think I had realized, well, it was only really a year and a half ago I was finally diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and got on drugs. Lexapro saved my life.
Oh, that's good.
Looking back now, I can see how anxious as a person I was. And I was anxious to belong in church, even though I didn't feel like I belonged in church. And I was anxious to belong at school, even though I didn't feel like I belonged in school. So I was just like, I didn't belong anywhere, didn't belong in my own skin.
I think a lot of people will relate to that, because I feel like the bar is set so high at meeting, and sometimes with cliques and things, you may never feel like you truly fit in, or like maybe even that you're not good enough for God, like those kinds of feelings. But it's so indoctrinated into you that you're different from the world and you're separate from it, and your schedule keeps you from socializing with school. So at school, like, you don't feel like you belong there either. It is really like a lonely feeling to be kind of trapped in the middle of both worlds.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to go overnight school camps at all. So even if it was going away to be, with the entire kind of school, or whether it was going away to I wasn't allowed to go to parties with school friends. So in my high school yearbook at the end of high school, I was the guy voted most likely to start a cult, which I think was interesting.
Was that just an option they did every year? Did people like custom write that in?
I think it was a custom one. I think it was a custom one for me, because I get called cult boy and all that kind of stuff. And I think part of that was defensiveness, because I know when I left my final day of high school, when I left, there were a couple of guys who came up to me, and you know how, guys are when they're 17, 18, that kind of thing, like, particularly Australians, I should say, just not good at emotions at all.
Okay, because I was like, I've never been an Australian 17-year-old boy, so just give me a little more context.
Yeah, Aussies aren't known for being kind of the most touchy-feely, like in touch with their emotions.
I feel like that's also people in the UK would probably agree.
Yes,
I feel like there's a lot of that still in America. I think it's a lot of the patriarchal crap.
100%.
I don't know.
It's patriarchy shit for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think a lot of them came up to me and they're like, well, I guess it's goodbye. And a lot of it was...
See you, bro.
Well, it was just, there was some anger there. And I now know that anger is a secondary emotion.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, there's some sadness where people are like, we know you. Like, we've been friends with you for 6 years of your life. But, like, we won't see you because you're not allowed, And
that is pretty sad if it was just, they knew like your lifestyle wouldn't allow them to be a part of it.
Yeah, it was sort of devastating. And I, thankfully with social media now, like I have stayed in touch with some of those folks, and I even kind of caught up with one of my high school friends over here who lives in San Francisco and who transitioned.
Wow.
Who's now a trans woman, and we caught up in San Diego and for a drink, and it was incredible to share.
Who would have thought?
Right?
That sounds fun.
They were known as Ben, but they're now a trans woman. So it's so fascinating to me to kind of be able to kind of walk through that world.
Yeah, it is wild to be there and see so much of someone's life too.
Yeah. So yeah, I think on the whole, my childhood, kind of had a lot of meaning because of the Christadelphians and because of that community, and simultaneously like a lot of cringe where I kind of felt like I couldn't, just kind of be fully me and fully who I was. And that was, also around music being kind of one of those things that
we're going to talk about music in this episode for sure.
We will.
Yeah.
So that, and I think I've realized over the last couple of years that my own kind of gender journey has been kind of really like complicated, and
interesting. Okay.
And I sort of came out quietly as non-binary like a year and a half ago, and embraced kind of they them pronouns, and it feels incredible.
Okay.
But I think it's one of those things I still struggle to tell a lot of people about, because of course, telling the family and all kind of stuff is like, oh my God, now we have to do this thing. This is also hard. I'm now going to be the problem kid again for this thing.
Oh, believe me, they don't like it when you ask them to change what they call you. They do not like it.
Yeah.
Been there.
Yep. Right.
Speaking of names, were you intentionally given a Bible name? Do you and any siblings have Bible names?
Yeah, I was definitely intentionally given a Bible name. So Benjamin, of course, being a classic kind of Bible name, sort of my right hand, which, P.S., for all the nerds who still listen to the Christadelphian podcast, I don't know if they've ever noticed that all the Benjamites in the Bible identified as left-handed. So I think that's kind of funny. Son of my right hand, and they're all left-handed. I'm like, is there a queer reference in here somewhere?
It feels like there's an inside joke or like some sort of play there.
Yeah, it's the tattoo I want to do, because I want to get a tattoo on my right, kind of shoulder coming down to my arm. Mm-hmm. That's all about darkness, because oftentimes I feel like there's all these stories, in the Bible and in a lot of kind of mythical and mystical texts about darkness saving you, and like the long dark night of the soul and all that kind of stuff.
Sometimes you got to go through the darkness.
Yeah, so deliberately putting that on my right hand, because it's the darkness that saves you. Son of my right hand, and then on the left hand side, I'm going to do the light tattoo, because left-handed, and being left-handed was a code for queer in the 20th century, but before then it indicated to be cunning or tricksy. So it's that
sneaky with that hand no one expects,
right? So both of those things kind of relate to my name. Anyway, that's the expensive tattoo.
I enjoy tattoo stuff.
I've noticed. So yes, Benjamin, and then my middle name is my maternal grandfather's name, John. It's what he goes by, but actually a lot of people don't know that his real name was actually Alan, but he went by John.
John's a better biblical name, so maybe that's why he went for it. I don't remember there being any Allens in the Bible.
Alan.
Hey, Alan. Help me carry this beggar to Jesus, Alan.
Yeah, and before my grandfather, kind of came into the Christadelphians and was sort of anointed by Hurst Mansfield as kind of the next dude, and became like a really big figure in Christadelphians. He converted like in his like late teens, 20s. So
was it for a woman?
I think it was for a woman. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the most common reason. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he got all the way in. I mean, what was really fascinating about my grandfather was, like international speaker, like well known and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of his life, sadly, he succumbed to dementia. And what was absolutely fascinating to me was that he lost every lick of the Bible. Whoa. Yep.
Despite it being that deeply ingrained. I imagine during his peak, he was reciting verses constantly. This one and that one, just so familiar because he was using them so much and reading them so much.
And he had this tiny little study that was just basically sort of a closet that had been converted into this study, and he would lock himself in there with his classical music and his books and, study for hours, and he preached at most of the end of year studies, and, So yeah, he was so well known, and I think what's fascinating, him and I had a contentious relationship. But I had the opportunity to see him on one of my trips to Australia, and I didn't because one of my childhood friends was having a really traumatic breakup and happened to be in Adelaide that day clearing his stuff out from his ex's house. His ex was physically abusive. And so I was like, no, I'm going to go and be with my friend, my soul family. And so I didn't end up seeing my grandfather. But one of the things I was curious to see and to meet him was apparently he had really gone back in his mind and is back to that teenager who loved his footy and was, you know, a street kid and it got up
just
to
wants to
mischief.
like watch sports and be
I want to be that guy, you know, like.
He and I would get along, you know.
I know. I'm a big AFL fan. You know, it's Australian rules football, and that's kind of what he used to play. And I did not know that part of his story at all. And so I was just like, I think we might get along, actually.
That's hilarious. But also, how many times do you see online now people talking about how more and more common when people are trying to feel more authentic and trying to like heal from stuff, they go back to childhood stuff so frequently, like those hobbies that they were initially drawn to before they, you know, quote unquote grew up.
Yep.
It seems so common that there's kind of that dip back into the childhood interest.
Yeah, I've done a lot of therapy over the last kind of 6-7 years of my life. And my last therapist, I was getting into IFS, or internal family systems is the name of the thing. And it's trying to identify that you contain multitudes inside you, and they're often warring for attention. But, you know, like sort of the deepest root of one of those is your wounded child. And it's what did you not potentially receive as a child that you're trying to solve for in adulthood? How are you trying to find love? How are you trying to find connection? And yeah, I mean, I thought I was going to be always this person who was like keeping up with music because I'm a musician, all that kind of stuff. But like, I know there's records I go back to now that from when I was 14, 15, 16, like those parts of life, and they feel like home, you know? And I'm now at the age where that's like 30 years ago.
Right? And now it's starting to be on like classic channels and it's like throwback music. I heard something in the grocery store that was so banging the other day and I was like, oh no, that's from the 2000s. And that's old now. No.
I know. It's sad. I was complaining to someone the other day. It's like, I have to scroll so far back for the birth year now. I'm just like, why do they make it so hard?
Well, I mean, especially when they start with the current year. I was like, come on, no babies are using this app. Yeah. Come on. At least give me to like 18 and then I can just scroll from there.
Your app is for over 21. Start at that.
Start 21 years ago. Yes. Don't make me scroll that far. Yeah, scrolling back into another century is not great because I know if and when I get old, people are going to tease me mercilessly. Like, you were born in the 1900s?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah, kid, I am old.
I remember when I was teaching music for a while, you know, when I got to the year where it was like, I taught the first kid that was born like January year 2000, and it just blew my mind that someone was born in the new century. And those kids are 25 now.
Right? Like, they're adults? How?
Disgusting.
And one of them's probably going to be listening and be like, oh, that's me. Thanks for listening. We're just old now. Yeah. I recently found out that my friend who was 101 passed away. And I still can't get over how much he saw in his lifetime. And he was still with it. He had his full wit, sense of humor, was still walking around up until like the very end, living in his own house until he was 99. Just incredible. But he'll tell me like, well, I was in the Navy during Pearl Harbor, and like tell me these stories from like all these different wars he lived through and just a whole different life that he lived through. It was just incredible. Like, because he was just so intellectually there. It was unbelievable hearing about someone who lived that long. It's like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
the last century, just the changes are absurd. Like, you know, before my grandfather on my dad's side died, he wrote down a bunch of his recollections about his life. And
that must have been really cool.
It was incredible. And I remember kind of reading, I didn't get to go to his funeral, sadly. He was the grandparent I was closest to, and I feel...
Yeah, I didn't get to go to mine when they passed either.
Yeah, it's devastating.
It was sad.
You know, but I read his kind of little memoir kind of thing, and he recounts like a story of traveling from Sydney to Melbourne by like horse and coach. And I was like,
Right.
I'm sorry, what now? Like, it's like a 4-day journey. Like, it's a 10-hour drive. And I was like, well, horse and coach? What are you talking about?
That's how John Thomas was traveling. I'm reading his stories and they're batshit sometimes. Did you know he almost died from a hunting accident because he was trying to like hunt fucking wild birds while they were traveling by like horse and buggy into like areas that had recently like had like the wars with Native Americans and stuff. It was just wild, like just hearing about a different time. And I was like, that was only 200 years ago.
I know. It's so incredible. The fact that our ancestors survived it all is just, I mean, one of my little guilty pleasures is when I'm like, dysregulated and can't sleep at night and stuff like that. I watch the show Alone.
Okay, which one is that? Is that like a survival one or what?
Yeah, it's like National Geographic. It's on the History Channel. I think I watched on Hulu.
I don't know what History Channel means because I thought it was just aliens at this point. So
I think it's often like History Channel is like old Egyptian kind of stuff or
I thought it was all conspiracy theories and Shark Week or something like that.
No, not at all. There's some interesting shows. I mean, I don't watch a lot, but this is the one show I do watch.
Because I just remember it going off the rails during my lifetime, where it went from being like really informative to being like anything that's on like the dark corners of the internet. I was like, oh, okay, that's the History Channel.
I know, conspiracies, right? Yeah, I guess you can't get on board them, I
think it's debunking. Like, even if I see a social media post that's too good to be true, I Google that shit. I'm like, okay, this one I feel safer posting. And I'll show like a clip of a news article and be like, here's to critical thinking while you're on the internet, kids.
Yeah. I think us deconstructed kids definitely have it.
I don't trust no one. Like, I don't trust you. Nope.
So Alone is like they drop off 10 strangers in the wilderness with nothing, and that they have to film their own stuff. So they give them GoPros and they kind of stuff things, and they basically then try and survive as long as they can. And
as long as they can, how many die, or do they get like hovered out? Like do they have like a flare? They
do have an emergency phone. They have flares and the whole thing, and there is a medical team that does drop in. And obviously, the further they get along, it's it is every couple of days because they will pull people medically if that person has got to a place where the kind of way is dangerous. And
I imagine there's going to be a lot of panic attacks though.
It's and it's always the same way. It's just one of those things where it's just kind of like you got these big tough dudes going out to the wilderness, and it's like, and then by day 39 they're sobbing in their tent because they're missing their wife and their kids, and they're just like, we're just meant to be together. I just don't know what I'm doing here. It's just my own ego battle.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need to be away from reality to get a wake up call about your inner feelings. Yeah.
I don't know how we got onto that, but anyway, that's my little.
That was your comfort show to help you sleep, I believe. I was watching Girl Mem cry.
Now that you put it that way.
No, I get it. You're like, no, it's okay, guy. You can cry. Yeah, it's fine. We'll go to bed. I'm safe at home.
I think the thing is that the show has a beautiful pace to it because it's not sensational the way everything else is edited.
Yeah.
It's like just this long, slow process of watching people starve, basically.
Yeah, and just slowly unravel.
But it's also just beautiful. I mean, the world is stunning. That these kind of places they have them, like they're up in Alaska and kind of higher up than that. It's right. They dropped them off right before winter, right as the bears are hibernating. So you can't just put people alone where there's bears just crawling around.
No, because I heard about that one guy who thought he was like a grizzly bear and like they were buddies with him, and then he of course got mauled to death because he's like, no, the bears like me. No, we're family. I was like, no, dude, you are lunch. Sorry, man. Like, it's a great feeling. I wish animals would feel the same about me, but right now it's just dogs that just know I'm approachable and just come right up to me. It's not bears.
Yeah,
it's different if they approach you.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the Christadelphians some more? Maybe we should. Okay, so let's talk about baptism stuff, and then maybe we can talk about fun music stuff. So tell me, I believe what led up to your baptism, if you were baptized?
I was baptized. I first wanted to be baptized at like 13, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's usually at the earlier years, yeah.
I was very devout, as a kid. I took it very seriously.
You were clearly a model, as you described before, so...
yeah, I'm artistic clearly. And so that, my Sunday school project in Australia, you could draw it up and it would make it look really pretty. And I often won, prizes for that. And I also did really well in the exams, despite the fact that I was like upside down in someone's car taking the test.
I don't relate to any of this because we had none of that. So I have no idea what's happening, but it sounds interesting. People keep bringing it up from Australia. And I was like, what on earth was happening in Australia? We didn't have exams and in the car. Like, why were you guys in cars and art projects? Like, what? We would just sit around and talk.
There's a lot of structure in Australian Christadelphians, like a lot of structure. And
we didn't have half of that.
Yeah. The Christadelphian Sunday School Association.
Association. It's like a nonprofit of its own, your Sunday school.
It's a thing. And strangely enough, I actually kind of wrote some songs for them over the last 10 years.
Oh, really? In the last few years?
Yeah. It was one of those things. My dad did this project, and they had me kind of write some stuff, and
so that was nice.
Yeah, it was kind of sweet. It was just like, this is kind of nice. So I want to be baptized at 13 or 14. I can't remember exactly kind of what the thing was, but I'd been to a Bible school and stayed up late, and then was probably just like half out of my mind with anxiety and the whole thing. And then
anxiety is a good push towards baptism. They're like, you might die if you don't do it. Do you want to do it? And you're like, yes, actually, yeah. If it's going to keep me alive, that sounds good. We'll do it.
Yeah, there were two things I remember really clearly to this day. One of them was, I think, in the last memorial meeting. I think I was like nodding off because I was so tired, and people kept on trying to like, keep me awake because you got to be awake during the whole thing. But I remember, like, I think halfway in between like sleep and awakeness, I remember that the exhortation this morning was about Peter denying Jesus, and and they drew this story that that Peter looked up and Jesus looked at him and this whole thing, and I could see it like in my mind. It was just like I was there and I could see the disappointment of Jesus, and I was like, I don't want to disappoint Jesus. So I was very compelled. And then the other story, which is just as traumatic, was I was in a play at one of these Bible camps. I think it was maybe our ecclesial camp, I think, in this play, and one of the older young people who I really respected was also in the play, and I was playing his younger brother, and the play was basically the judgment seat play, and they were
really went all the way. Oh, God. They're like, all right, children, let's decide. You're going to choose sides, decide if you're going to watch someone pretend to kick you out of the kingdom or accept you. And like half of you are going to be traumatized by this play.
That's what it was. And my older brother in the play got condemned to the lake of fire. And when he walked out that door, I lost it.
Oh, of course you did.
I was just like, I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah, you're so little. That's why they teach you religion so young.
Oh my God, it was really traumatizing, and I know that people over here, in the evangelical circles talk about heaven and hell and that kind of stuff, and I don't relate to that.
But, because we didn't have the hell belief system, but
the judgment seat,
the resurrection,
the idea that God's going to drag you out of the ground and
just to kill you.
Just to kill you. All the
and
other
tell you that you're bad.
Yeah. Or the other thing, which is you wander for 1,000 years and you don't what is that? That's some sick bullshit right there.
Yeah.
So those two things I think kind of really kind of big triggers for me to kind of be like, I need to get my life right. I was sort of the smart kid, so I knew all the answers to all the questions, and
because there was always the exam portion of it.
Yeah. So I wrote my dad a letter. And I was really scared, and I wrote my dad this letter, and I was just like, I want to be baptized, and the whole thing, and I slipped it under his door and ran back to my room.
This is so classic.
And
all these little kids trying to tell their parents, I want to be saved. But it's such an adorable kid thing where it's I don't know how about this adult conversation though.
Yeah. And my memory of it, and memory can be a tricky thing, so I don't know if this is exactly what happened. My memory of it basically is Dad sort of came back into my room with a pile of books, a stack of books, and was just read these books and we'll talk. And I didn't read those books, and I spent the next spent the next 8 years of my life.
I never read any of those books. No,
I mean I did, but I didn't read them. The ones that were told to me, I didn't read them. I read other things. But I spent the rest of my teenage years just trying to completely screw up my life and get on their nerves. And so I didn't. And then basically my baptism story is a weird one because I was 20 years of age and I was dating one of my
Wow, no one ever went back to it between 13 and 20. It was hey, remember you want to get baptism? Maybe instead of reading all those books, we could actually have a conversation and decide if you're ready.
Well, yeah, and I think I reached out to like one of my older cousins at some point and sort of asked him, but he also kind of felt like I think the responses just weren't, they didn't match my big feelings. It was a bit more like it just didn't feel like excitement. I think I was
It sounds so
expected to.
cold and academic.
Yeah, it was
And usually
weird.
you kind of want to ride that high. Like, okay, they want to go, get them while they're already emotionally charged and ready to go and just dunk
Yeah,
them in. Come on.
yeah,
That's what the apostles used to do. They'd be like, I met Jesus. I want to get baptized. All right, let's go down to the river. Whoever wants to get baptized, hop on in. Like,
yep,
that was how baptisms were in the Bible, too. It wasn't, all right, Jesus handed me a stack of books and said, if you want to follow me, you got to read all these books and agree with me as I take an exam for you and like to give you an exam.
yeah. So yeah, it was 20 years of age. I was dating like one of my best friends I grew up with. It was also my sister's best friend. She'd you know, she'd turned 18 and cut her hair off, and I was like, oh, she's cute. And so we dated for a while.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I was a cutie with a pixie.
And it was, you're right. You probably went through an emo stage. I'm kind of also guessing.
Yep. I also did rainbow hair, every single color, bleach,
I can
everything.
See it.
Yeah. And I pulled it all off, let me tell you.
No doubts.
It was fun.
So, when you date someone who you've grown up with and who went to church with you, like it goes from 0 to hero very quickly, because it's like, what is there to explore? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just kind of like we know each other. So the prescribed path is you're supposed to get married, the whole thing. And
there's different views on dating with Christadelphians, I will say, because some are very, like 0 until the wedding night, and then all of a sudden it's 100 and you're like married forever.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I remember there were some people who was like, you can't kiss, you can't do anything. So.
Right. So yeah, it turned kind of serious, and we were talking about kind of getting engaged and stuff like that. But she was just like, well, my memory, I might be wrong. I think she got baptized a little bit earlier, and so she was just like, well, if we're going to get engaged, you probably should be baptized.
Oh, wow. Okay. Which in Christadelphia is, I'm sure, a very common kind of conversation thing for anyone who's listening who's not Christadelphian, because generally baptized Christadelphians marry baptized Christadelphians. That status could have been a problem.
Yep. And so that, unequally yoked, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So,
even though you were raised Christadelphian, you would not have been at the acceptable level.
So I pretty much just under her dad quickly just said to him, this is what I want. I want you to gather the elders, next week. I will answer any of the questions.
Yeah.
I will make, it was more common at that time for people to be making like statements rather than answering the 350 questions.
Please tell me that's not the actual number of questions.
It was a large number of questions. Yeah, I remember in my childhood.
I remember it was hours of it, though.
Sitting at the hall for hours as they kind of went through the thing. So that had fallen out of favor, and people kind of were making their own sort of personal statements, which was usually, had to be signed off by AB and arranging brother and all kind of thing. My memory is, as well as that my girlfriend's dad was either on the ABs or had been on the ABs, whatever, and I was just like, listen, you know the people, you can gather them. I'll answer their questions. I was pretty cocky because I was like, you know me as the kid. I know the answer to the questions. I know what you want me to say.
I've sat through all these, and I've been to how many lectures?
But I had a brother from one of the Shield meetings, because I'd woken up at that point and realized there were actually like Shieldies over that side.
Okay.
I had one of the brothers come over and kind of talk at my baptism, which I think was probably a pretty radical thing that I'd never really seen. And then I was just like, and you'll be baptizing me, and I will not be joining your ecclesia. You'll be baptizing me into the Christadelphians, but I won't be a member of the Riverwood Christadelphians.
So for me, who doesn't keep straight the logos and the shields, you wanted the shield person to baptize you, but were you in the logos building? And so you wanted to identify as which when you came out of the water? Neither? Both?
Neither really. Neither. I did not want to be. So I was baptized in Riverwood Ecclesia Hall by a shield. By a
Your
shieldie.
non-binary is showing up already. You're like, I don't identify as either.
Exactly.
You're like, stop trying to label me.
And then one of my things I kind of said was like, I want to be baptized into the into the body of Christadelphians, and then what I'm going to do, because I only just discovered that there was this whole other shield conversation, because I come from a large family, and I'd been told that they all had left the truth. Turns out a lot of them were like just
They were
worshiping.
just at the other meeting?
Yeah, like 7 minutes away, 7 minutes around the corner.
They fucking lied to you about that? They said they were gone?
Oh, yeah. I thought they were gone. And I did have an inkling that there were different kinds of Christadelphian church.
Yeah.
It was kind of whispered about. But I thought...
Wow, they really kept you locked down. That's extra culty to be like, they're dead. But it's like, they're not dead. They're right around the corner.
Right around the corner. And hundreds of them. It was just as strong in Sydney. I think maybe I think the Shirleys were slightly smaller, potentially, than the Luggies. But anyway, so I basically got baptized with the intent to visit every ecclesia in Sydney. And drive all over and visit all of them and then make up my mind where I belonged.
I kind of love that. Yeah, I feel like that would be the way my mind would work too. But we didn't have that where I was.
Right.
Like, you would have to drive like an hour or two just to get to another one. And they were all unamended. So, like, all right, well, I'm not going to make that drive every weekend, let's be honest, even if I wanted to.
Yeah, we were definitely spoiled for choice. And, that was kind of part of I think a lot of Americans used to come across to Australia because of the fact that we had a large kind of social group of people to marry.
I would say some of my relatives took advantage of the dating pools. So I've got some of them married into the Aussies. So.
Oh, yeah.
And Canada, we mined from Canada some eligible people. So,
So I basically just kind of demanded that I was baptized at that point. Especially I guess I had the fact that it was like dating your daughter. Like, if you want me to marry your daughter, like, you got to get me dumped.
You might want to get it done.
And I think at that time I had a crap ton of questions. I definitely didn't think that was a high point. I remember thinking, even coming out of the water, I was just like, I didn't expect any light to appear. Mm-hmm. But it definitely was like, this
a little bit of a letdown.
A little bit of a letdown. And I think also the guy who I asked to come and like preach and baptize me said some pretty wild things about baptism.
Like what? Like this heathen here, we're gonna try to get him to the gates. Like what? Was it like a burn? Like
he said out loud that he's like, I know you're an ambitious person, and I know that fame is like a thing, and that and you're gonna have to kind of deal with your pride in your life. And I'm like,
he was just like, I'm gonna humble this kid.
I'd never heard that before. I think I was shocked. I was just like, this is a night where usually people said good things about you.
Usually they say good things. It's usually not a roast.
Yeah, I was just like, damn.
Especially when you brought in a shieldy and they're like, well, that's what those shieldies do now. Just like,
I don't know if he was trying to like one up the Logies. I think he was maybe had a chip on his shoulder that he was also looking to. I think he didn't really like my grandfather either. So I think there was some weird blood
Was
there.
it Christadelphian fame he thought you wanted, or was it like music fame you think he was referencing? Because I could see it being either if you had such a prominent dad versus it like maybe he knew like your passion for the industry, which you have gone into. Like
at that point, no, I had no dreams of being a musician.
So it would have been like the Christadelphian lens. Okay.
Right? I think it was more about my family. I think he was just
humbling you.
Genuinely having the shot across the bow at my family. I don't know if it was even all about it, because it's like, anyway, I've never been able to figure out what the fuck he was actually saying.
Is that thing recorded? Because I remember they gave me like a CD of mine afterwards. I was just like, and at least mine was nice. Right. I do not have it anymore. I'm sorry for anyone who's wondering, but it's probably somewhere in the Marlton Christadelphians. They're like, she's going to be so great as a Christadelphian. Like,
yes. So I got baptized. Shortly after that, my girlfriend and I split because she cheated on me. And I then had gone around that point. I was visiting all these ecclesias. I'd met my now ex-wife and was just like crazy about her. And she went to the second most liberal Christadelphian church in Sydney. And that was across the entire other side of the city from me. I drove past really every ecclesia.
I mean, the things we do for love. Come on.
So yeah, I joined this tiny little ecclesia, which was again all of her family.
Yeah, not surprised.
And and kind of went from there. So it was my baptism story is a weird one because I think it was me trying. I think what I was trying to do again was trying to differentiate, and I was trying to find myself, and I was trying to find my way towards faith, and trying to find my own path. And also around that time, the girlfriend that I was seeing who cheated on me. Her parents also were really kind of mentoring me towards buying a car, getting some independence, living away from home. So I thought that if I actually got baptized, I could be taken seriously enough to make some choice in my life. Because at that point, if I was living at home, like I remember my dad once reaming me out because I was walking out of the front door to go to the lecture, the gospel proclamation lecture, and I didn't have a tie. And I was just like, Dad, if interested friends is what we call them, if interested friends are walking through, they're not going to be in ties. So like, I just want to make them feel comfortable, and I want to be comfortable, and I bought blue boots and they were horrified that I bought blue Doc Martens. And, it's just all my decisions were kind of constantly questioned, controlled, critiqued. And I think I was hoping that being baptized would be a kind of sign of my growing up and that I could be taken seriously. So,
because at least in the meeting, you're basically get adult status. It would be like turning 18 in most cultures, because now you have more of a role. You can take on more responsibilities. You get more access to different power and stuff like that, especially as a man. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And which I didn't want any of that, because the funniest thing was then he's like, oh, you're baptized and you play piano, you can be on the organ roster. I'm like, first of all, organ is not my instrument. Like, I don't play organ. Like, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
That pumpy thing, like holding on the notes. No. I play a percussion instrument. So, but I don't know if you had this structure in your meetings, but as a dude, you had to go to MI, mutual improvement classes. So you basically had to speak in front of your peers, and you get critiqued by the older men and stuff like that in order to kind of preach.
Yeah, I've heard of that in the UK, but I haven't heard of it in America. Maybe in some meetings that I'm just wasn't around. But again, we had such a small group in comparison to a lot of these groups that I feel like it would have been a lot harder to make that happen, which was probably part of the reason. Yeah.
It's so funny because I think from the time I was baptized to now, I think I only went back to Riverwood twice.
Wow.
And I don't think the last time I was not offered the emblems when I went back there.
How long ago was that?
Oh God, I don't know. It's been so long.
Yeah, because I was like, it probably wasn't like a year ago. Yeah.
No.
So it would have been within a reasonable time frame since your baptism, but because you were going to the Shield meeting, was that why they would have withheld it? Because you weren't fellowshipping actively as a Logos member?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, because that's how it gets here with the unamended, amended. They would withhold it from you if you were at the opposing group's meeting. Yeah.
And because I was just also outspoken about a bunch of things. So it wasn't just that I was a shieldy, it was that I was basically part of the problem. I'd become, I was...
You were like the punk Christadelphian. Let's speak truth to power here.
I had the Saul to Paul thing where I jumped over the fence and then became sort of the poster boy for pushing, contemporary music forward and for, kind of calling out social justice stuff. And so I became incredibly, I sort of, everything they stood for, I stood against.
Great fit.
Yeah.
So I was going to move into music next anyways. And it sounds like we've kind of led up right to that point because you just started mentioning contemporary music. So what kind of music did you grow up with? Let's get started with that. And then we can move into how your views and conversations evolved with that.
Yeah, it was all hymns that I grew up with. All hymns to organ all the time.
No piano or keyboard or just organ?
There was a piano in the hall that I grew up with. Strangely enough, for Sunday school, they would play the piano, not the organ. And I think it was a different pool of people who played the piano. Like that, they were people who were too nervous to play the organ during service.
Yeah, we had different ones too. Yeah.
Often kind of younger women, I think, kind of would play it, and they would play piano. So that at Sunday school they would play piano, but it was never in the service. And we never did that organ and piano thing, which I think a lot of churches and
I think we did.
do.
We had an organ and a piano, and it depended who was playing. Because I had sisters who learned to play piano, and so one of them would sometimes do that. But then I remember there was an older sister who played organ, so she would hop on if it was her on the schedule for the organ.
Yeah, I just actually heard about a month or so ago that one of the organists in our meeting, Bonnie, passed away. And I didn't know Bonnie at all, but she was just a terrific woman who'd sit on that organ and just you could see that she loved it.
Aw, well, that's nice.
That's all I really knew about her. But when I heard that she passed, I was kind of sad because I was just well, that's a human I knew. And she did bring me joy, because I think she just loved what she did and she was a great organ player. So.
And good for her to have a venue to play the organ to her heart's content for an audience, Good for her.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it was never really played. The piano would be played occasionally, like the youth would do an item at something, and the youth would bring something a little bit more different and modern, which was usually probably still 40 years old.
Probably.
So yeah, it was very much that. I think at Bible schools, Rathmines Bible School, my memory's
Did
terrible.
the guitars come out for those at least?
No.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to push it.
No. The Logies up until, so this was kind of the late 90s. So until the turn of the century, at no Logie meeting ever would you see.
Well, I get at the meeting, but like
Yeah.
sometimes there's like devotions and stuff in the evenings, and like I remember a lot of the youth events I went to, or like evening where like there weren't really a lot of adults, guitars came out, and it was still like acoustic hymns.
No, I mean the guitars were banned at most youth.
Like would they kick you out if they found one in your room?
They would just confiscate the guitar, Yeah. So yeah, it was very anti anything that wasn't
musical instruments to uplift the Lord. We are against music. They
would prefer to sing a cappella than sing to anything other than the piano or organ.
Bleak. This is very Victorian. Like they're probably on like, we can only sit on wood benches. You can't even have colored fabrics. It's just going to distract from worshiping the Lord. Like it's just, oof, it sounds so bleak.
And the Logies were, as people mentioned on this podcast before, it was all like women had to wear hats and had to wear skirts.
Yeah.
Men, you're wearing full suits, like in the height of summer, where you'd walk out after the meeting, and the men would peel off their jackets, and it's just like they've just sweated through everything, which is just like, oh my gosh,
disgusting.
Like the height of the Sydney summer, like 100 degrees,
it's hot down
like
in Australia,
80% humidity, and you're sitting in a brick building with no AC, like.
No one passed out. Like, holy crap.
People definitely. I remember people like being like
right?
unwell.
Like heat stress.
Oh yeah,
like,
100%. I remember people like sometimes brutal. Like collapsing or sitting down the hymn because they felt woozy.
Yeah, this isn't Scotland. Like, don't dress like Robert Roberts. He was from freaking Scotland. That's different. You need a winter coat there.
Yeah. So, it was very, very strict in every way, shape, and form. And music was a huge part of that, like massive. So for me, it was an absolute revelation when I, jumped the fence and found out I think it was 2000. It was 2000, and I found out that there was a whole other side of the world. And I went to the more, the Shiley family conference, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
what was that like, music-wise?
Oh, yeah. It was like choirs and jazz and gospel and like drums, and I'm just like,
I never had that. That's
that was
nope. You guys are so wild because I was like right in the middle, and you guys were so extreme, one or the other.
So
my goodness,
extreme. Yeah,
I never experienced either of those.
Sydney scene was so extreme, and so for me, I was like, this is amazing. And there was an ex-Christadelphian who lives in New York City, Jeremy. He ran this choir. And they put out the Shout CD, which I don't know if you ever heard the Shout CD.
I might have. I'd have to double check because it's been a minute. It's not 2000 anymore.
I mean, this wasn't even 2000. This was like 96, 97, somewhere like that. There was Fruit of Our Lips, which was like a tamer version. And there was
Fruit of Our Lips, I absolutely listened to.
Oh, yeah. Well, Shout predated Fruit of Our Lips, and it was basically kind of a Christadelphian sister act. And Jeremy led a lot of those choirs. Jeremy is, came out gay. Surprise, surprise. And it was a really good friend of mine. Him and his husband lived in New York, and Ian's on Broadway, and they're both incredibly talented.
That sounds fantastic. I love that trajectory for them from just like a gay choir boy to just on Broadway. Yeah. Fantastic.
Good fit, and Jeremy's a brilliant person. So Jeremy had left by the time I grew up.
Oh, I remember this was... Just looked up the Fruit of Our Lips CD. This was one of our favorites, I'm pretty sure.
As the deep waters.
So long after you.
Get it.
A new commandment I give unto you. El Shaddai. Oh, I guess we're now for El Shaddai.
Oh, my gosh.
El Shaddai, Eliana Adonai.
So, little side note here in my story is, I don't know if you got to my part of my story where I produce music, and and Flamey Grant is one of the people I produce for.
I saw that on your Instagram, and I went to your playlist of what you collaborate with people on, or like were involved with producing or whatever it was, and I saw Flamey Grant on there. Fun.
So Flamey Grant's one of my dearest like friends in the world. You know,
Aw.
is a drag queen singer-songwriter, obviously affectionately, you know, Amy Grant being the kind of the Flamey Amy
Yes,
Grant.
the spoof of Flamey Grant was off Amy Grant.
And so I produce, you know, Flamey's music. I'm also her booking agent as well now. And so we haven't yet managed. I've worked with Amy Grant at Wild Goose Conference years ago and kind of was alongside Amy kind of in the final thing in the whole thing. And I was also stood right alongside Amy in the middle of the tent at 1 a.m. with beer and hymns, with all these people like, you know, sort of drinking and drunk, and we sang El Shaddai. And it was just like... And I'm like, if the Christadelphians could see me now!
Yeah, I feel like that would happen if we had like an ex-Christadelphian Bible school where we're all like hanging out in Airbnb. It's getting late and someone pulls out a guitar and they're like, what songs do we all know? You know what? Like,
yes, sadly. That thing slaps.
Praise the Lord. Who's got the hymn book?
So amazing.
Yeah.
So Jeremy had left by the time I kind of came around, and so I pretty much just kind of like, I think people saw my passion and my talent and pretty much just handed me the keys to that. So I jumped over into the kind of the Sheila youth group, which is called SCYP, Sydney Christadelphian Young People. And within months, I was leading the band and did that for years and years and years. And then there was a lot of people, I think, who were very skeptical about me because they knew my family name, right? They knew me as, you know, a Pharisee of the Pharisees, as Paul would say. And they just didn't know, they just didn't trust that I wasn't kind of really
the
there
same as them, I
to
guess.
pull apart the culture.
Yeah.
I don't think they realized I was there to push it even further than they wanted.
Even more unsuspecting.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't so slow, but it was just like, you know. So, you know, within the first couple of years, we ran into some kind of like issues where we'd be playing some songs, and at that point, you know, Hillsong was, you know, pretty big, you know. So we're playing Hillsong song, and people were like, oh, I don't really like they didn't say theology because they didn't know that word, but they don't really like the lyrics because what they mean with like his arms open wide is like Jesus on the cross like this, and they think about it this way, and we don't think about it like that.
Robert Roberts would have been in that boat, let me tell you. He hand-picked words in the hymn books. Like.
Oh, yeah, 100%. That the amount of, I mean, as humans, we've been changing hymns, you know, forever. I'm one of those nerds, hymnary.org. I can tell you that on some of the hymns, I can tell you exact history of why things were changed and whatever it is. Like that's my version of what you do with the podcast.
Which is why you're going to come back to talk music with me, right, Ben?
We should definitely do a musical episode. I've got to rope in some friends to talk about it because it's a whole story. So, yeah, so that we pretty much, in reaction to that, I was just like, I think I said out loud, it's like, well, why don't we just write our own music? And people looked at me like, you're crazy.
We can't do that. And then it's now School of Rock or something like that kind of energy.
But we started doing it, and we started writing our own music, and started playing at youth group, and our youth group went through the roof, like absolutely through the roof. People started bringing like their boyfriends and girlfriends from school to youth group. I think we tapped out. I think, you know, there was usually about 60, 70 people at SCYP, and I think one night we're at 300 people. It was bursting.
Are you freaking kidding me?
It was wild. And just people wanted this thing, and then
they wanted the music, and they wanted that community. Clearly, they were getting something out of being there too.
Yeah, and I think it was very vibrant at that point.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the music. There was a vibrancy to the whole team. We would have been creative anything outside the box. I think one of my favorite ideas, again, that I cheekily said out loud, were trying to figure out something for the year. And I'm like, well, we should probably preach on Hosea, you know, because, you know, like the sexiest book of the Bible, it's just like, go and marry a prostitute and then use your marriage as a symbol of, you know, our unfaithfulness to God. And I was like, we should tell that story. And people were like, you're crazy. And I'm like, we should actually like tell it as a puppet play. And we did it. And that puppet play was so...
Are you talking about hand puppets?
We did hand puppets. We did a
You're
hand puppet
you're
play
freaking kidding.
of Hosea. It was so popular. We then toured it to other places.
I would have wanted to see it. Hell yeah. That is hilarious, though.
Uh-huh. So it was just that creative. There were a bunch of people around.
It's new. There's good energy. It's creative. It's engaging. It's refreshing.
Yeah. So we pretty much started this organization. Well, the organization existed already. It was Christadelphian Art Trust, or CAT for short. I inherited it. It was still around, but the guy who had founded that, Arthur Russell, had sadly passed away from cancer. And he was sort of the older mentor of the whole group.
Yeah.
The whole younger team was mostly all young adults, and they had aged out a little bit out of kind of, they'd moved from youth group into kind of young adults. They got married, they'd moved, all kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, once you take on all those adulthood roles, you're out. Yeah, it's got to go to a new generation.
They pretty much, as soon as I jumped the thing and started doing this kind of thing, a buddy of mine who also lived in New York now, but he was, was in Sydney at the time.
Man, you guys all came to America? What happened? You all just got your visas when you left? Like, what the?
You got to get off the island. You got to make something yourself.
Yeah. Everyone's like, we're just going to all go to America. That's where we go after we don't fit in our religious communities in Australia anymore.
Well, he's still in Christadelphians, that guy. So, anyway, he basically handed me the Arts Trust organization and said, you have energy, you're great, like, you should run with this. And it mostly had been doing like art exhibitions and like theater productions and plays. And we did do a few of those in my time, but it quickly just became all music.
Puppets. It's all hand puppets now.
Yeah, just quickly just became all music. And we put out 6, I think. There was Living, Moving, Being. There was Wonder, which was a Heritage College Sydney fundraiser. There was Every Day, which wasn't like a mainstream. That was Baringa. That was the kind of our most, progressive Christadelphian church. Songs in a Strange Land, Endless, and I think I'm missing one. But yeah, we put out a bunch of records, and they did great.
I bet, especially because I have heard at some like Bible camps, Bible schools, sometimes people be like, you shouldn't listen to worldly music, but like there wasn't a lot of good Christadelphian music.
Right.
And then if you listen to Christian music, it would be very different theology. Yep. And so it was like, what, are we supposed to never listen to music? And so I think it did potentially fill that void there where it's like, what are we supposed to listen to?
Yeah. But it was so wild because, like, the first one came out on the 19th of April, 2003. I remember it entirely. I was not in Melbourne, but there was a youth conference happening in Melbourne, and we were launching the album there. And when my buddy Ari got up to play a song called Yahweh's Youth, which is now an absolute Christadelphian banger and gets sung around the world, despite the fact that Ari and I both deconstructed.
Your legacy lives on.
Legacy lives on, strong. And when Ari got up to play the song, which is on the piano, and called Yahweh's Youth, and it's like a ballad. It's like, Father, we come to this place in the abundance of grace. It's just like, and I'm sort of doing his voice as Ari has, this whole thing, and people walked out. They walked out, and they didn't just walk out. They walked out and hopped online, and they were just like, there is a revolution happening here. Like, these people are like, this is a like
out of control.
This is out of control. Like, this thing hadn't been out for one day. And on that record, there's some guitars, yes, but there were no drums. There was no.
We drew the line at drums as a concession.
It was a folk record. We made a 70s folk record, and people flipped the hell out. And
they were there when the hippies were around. Come on.
No, they were not. Well, at least they ignored it. But yeah, we made this folk record, and then we just became pariahs overnight. It was just like we were the.
But was it only in certain meetings where you were pariahs, or because didn't you just say some of those songs were like major hits?
They became major hits now.
But at the time, it really did not land.
Oh, no. It was in a Logie world, we were just like, we were the devil, and people went out of the way. I mean, I got married in 2002. I changed my last name to Grace, and I got called Ben Disgrace. There were rumors everywhere. To my face one time in Adelaide at a conference, when I introduced myself to someone, he's like, oh, you're the person who like divorced your family. Like, it just, the rumors were wild about who I was and what we were doing.
experience with bullying. But again, I think it was also that time period was way worse, I think. Now it's online bullying, but
Right.
it was like the lived experience was bullying. I think like into the early 2000s was very different. It was a lot more intense, I think, because man, they're calling you cult boy, they're calling you Ben Disgrace, they're just tearing you down.
Yeah, it was a pretty wild time, and I think we pretty much ignored it.
But weren't you going to more shield environments though, which I would imagine was more?
There was a lot of openness to that. There was a lot of openness to it, and I wouldn't say at first that was like there was never global acceptance. Like I said, I went to like the second most progressive,
I thought there was a ranking of like the number one and the number two, like they were in competition to like be who could be most progressive.
They weren't really in competition. It was just that they were known. Like there's one ecclesia that like pretty much like they didn't call themselves an ecclesia; they called themselves a church. Beringa was its name, and they rocked out the drums every Sunday. They always had a rock band, and
I might actually have to visit that one if I was in Australia. I just want to see it.
It's not like that anymore, sadly. Like it's kind of fizzled. It's just I think a lot of kids are growing up and deconstructing earlier. But yeah, it really was. Yeah, those first. Well, I would say first. I said that decade. Between 2003 when we released that, and then I moved to the States in 2011. Okay. So it was almost a decade that I was there, and we put out a lot of records and toured around and set up coffee shops and all kind of things. Like it was a time of incredible change. The weird thing is, you never know what impact you're going to make with your life, right? But I think I can definitely point back and say I changed Christadelphian music, which I think is wild.
It's kind of cool. It's pretty cool,
and not by myself. Like I had pals. I'm sure some of them like James, who is playing all the. He lives in Australia. Well, I think he's moved back to New Jersey right now for a little bit, but moved to Australia.
Oh, James D.
Yeah,
I knew him. Yeah,
he's a good guy. Yeah,
I remember him being very sweet and emotional. If I remember correctly, like a big heart kind of guy. Like wears his heart on his sleeve.
He's a wonderful human being. I'm still in touch with him, and we still talk from time to time. And
he wasn't in my meeting, but we got to know because he was kind of local. It's like we would go to the other meetings in the state. Yeah.
And I had gone out of my way. I am a natural kind of networker and connector, and I got out of my way to kind of connect with people all overseas. And there was Fisher's Tale in the UK, who had a Christadelphian band that I loved their records, and so I kind of knew all of the major players when it came down on the Christadelphian music scene, and we all collaborated together. I think to kind of like to create stuff. And now it's so wild because I see like kids releasing stuff in Christadelphian meetings, and it's like completely slick Christian music, and I'm just like, man, like it's come a long way from where it was.
From where I was. I walked so you could run, kid.
Exactly. And I'm like, you don't know what I went through. I got called Ben Disgrace. Kids these days. Back in my day.
Back in my day, it was only the organ.
It's so funny. I have a song called With All My Heart that made it into the purple worship book that now gets sung everywhere. Like it's just sung absolutely everywhere.
That's so wild. That must be so weird.
It is a weird thing. And I can't sing it anymore. It's not something I get down with.
Yeah, it's not like you're playing that at your shows.
No way. And it's sort of one of those things where I'm kind of grateful because I think it was me trying to work through what I was working through at the time, and it's so funny to me because it's just like my story is just always ever onward, It's
you
always
moved past it, but that still like remains and
Yeah, and that's fascinating to me. It's fascinating that things become standards and become things that people kind of really, I feel really moved by because I'm just like, whew, okay, so you're still there. Like you still believe there's self-loathing, You know what I'm saying?
That's what I felt at the time when I was writing it. So you might identify with that. Yeah, you would be able to say as the writer.
And that makes me sad, I don't want people to be stuck there. I think one of the things that
What happened?
Oh, no.
Sorry,
broke the microphone.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the screws aren't tight enough.
Wells and we're all screw looses. That's what they've all said about us. So
it's my loose screw coming out. We all knew it was going to happen. Everyone knew she had one loose.
Oh, this is fun.
We always have fun.
It's so good.
do you want to chat any more about music in that era? Because I want to start moving towards you leaving.
I think I've mostly said everything else, and maybe we'll keep some spicy stories for the actual music, edition of this.
Yeah, keep some for whenever we do a music episode, because I absolutely want to be back. If you have some people you want to tap to come into, let me know. I can bring some history knowledge. You can bring some saucy stories. It'll be a good time. So let's move into what led up to you leaving the Christadelphians. You've already alluded to having a lot of questions. You've alluded to some of the culture not quite being a good fit. It sounds like you've had some relationships which may have kept you in, but some have ended. So why don't you tell me wherever the beginning of that leaving feels like for you?
I think the beginning of the leaving to me was finding Rob Bell and the Mars Hill podcast. I don't know if you know that name at all.
No.
Oh, great. Awesome. Rob Bell is known here in this country.
Sorry, I'm also younger than you. I don't know if it's young, if it's American. I don't know.
I know. There is that. Definitely Rob was of the time. He had these little 12, 10-minute videos called Numa, which were just philosophy kind of stuff. And he's an incredible communicator. Incredible. Just such a fantastic mind. So he started this church called Mars Hill. It was up in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay.
I don't even know how. I do know how I got into it. It's a friend of mine, Mel, gave me the book Velvet Elvis by Rob Bell, and gave me Blue Like Jazz, Donald Miller. Those are the two books that my friend Mel gave me. And she left at my house. She'd stayed. We'd talked about her and her life and all the things she was doing. She left me these books, and I read them, and I was like, holy shit. So I then kind of started listening to Rob Bell's sermons every, Monday. So I'd, do church in Australia and do all that kind of stuff. And then on Monday morning, I would be at home, I would do the dishes, and I would listen to Rob Bell. And I think
that's what people do with my podcast pretty much, because Sunday for me here ends up being Monday for you guys for the release.
Exactly. Yeah, the day after. So I would do the dishes and I would cry. And I just...
I would do the dishes and cry, and I still, to this day, just love my therapy sessions while I do my dishes. The Ben Gray story. It
got me, and I don't know what it exactly was. I think it was because he also was he's sort of weirdly obsessed with the Old Testament. The way he started the church was preaching through the book of Leviticus, which is dude, that would be the way you want to kill a church.
Huh. Yeah,
but
in my mind.
He just very much is kind of a person who I think... He was the first white person to me that I think introduced me to more of an Eastern lens on the world. Okay. And I think because the Christadelphians I grew up with were so obsessed with the Old Testament, but they were still running it all through their own white patriarchal lens.
It's a new perspective on old material.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, there's another way to read this? That's amazing.
I never knew that.
I never knew it. So that led me to listening to a lot more Christian music. David Crowder was my jam. I love David Crowder, so it was David Crowder and Rob Bell. And so then I moved to the States, and literally, so it was November 2011, moved to the States. David Crowder band broke up, and Rob Bell quit Mars Hill, all within a month. I almost literally bought a ticket from New York to Grand Rapids, Michigan to go to his last sermon, because I was just like,
I believe
my dude, you're quitting. I just got here.
Wow. And what a hard fall.
Right. And I pretty much kind of, when I got to New York, Googled churches like Rob Bell NYC. Literally, that's...
I don't know what he believed, but I want more of that.
I had no idea. I didn't know what an evangelical was. I had no clue at all.
Yeah. I just know this isn't Christadelphia, and it's something else.
Yeah. I was just searching. I was just, I think my anxiety was just always pushing me to kind of find the thing, find the answer. Find the next.
Well, then
question.
You can have relief because you're good. You found it.
Yeah, that's right. So, and my ex-wife would probably tell the story differently, and she would say that partly her moving us to the States was me getting away from the cult, and she was just like, I gave so much time. Like I said, all these albums were produced and all these things. It was all volunteer hours.
Yeah, deeply tied to it.
That I was pushing all of my creative energy and all of my free time and the whole thing into this thing. And whilst I did have band in Australia that I that I pushed, and also all that kind of stuff. It was really, church was taking up so much of my time. And so she's like, I've got to get you out of here. She's like, your talents are wasted on this little church. But yeah, again, moved to New York, and then Googled, churches like Rob Bell, wound up at this evangelical church.
You accidentally said evangelical, did you?
Yeah.
You definitely immediately went evangelical.
Evangelical.
Wow, that's deep in there. Because you're not the first one to say something like that, though. The evolution, too, was the other one.
Evolution. So yeah, went up to this evangelical church in the Gramercy area of Midtown Manhattan. Walked in the doors, and it was like, kind of a rock and roll dark space. They met at a music venue called the Gramercy Theater. It was like cool.
That's fun.
And the
for a music guy,
the lead pastors in like skinny jeans and
well, it's New York. You can wear goddamn anything. Yeah.
And so I pretty much went there, and within 2 Sundays. I mean, I didn't know anybody except for these 2 people in New York who were my wife's best friend and her husband. The guy who handed me Christadelphian Art Trust, that was him. But they weren't there when we moved to the States, so we were kind of there. We don't know anybody, got to meet people, So kind of, so I pretty much kind of announced myself, and we just got here fresh off the boat from Sydney, and a networker sort of thing. And within a month, the lead pastor's wife, who also happened to be the worship director, was like, let's get coffee. And we got coffee, and I walked back in from that coffee, and this guy comes up to me. He's like, I'm Jonathan Williams. I'm from Long Island. I'm planning a church. Let's get coffee,
Coffee.
Good people with coffee. Like classic Long Island accent that just felt like absolute cartoon to me.
You've nailed it.
Yeah. So he was like, let's get coffee next week. And so I did. And that was like, I think, 6 weeks into going to this church, and he offered me a job. He's like, do you want to come and plant a church with me in Brooklyn? Wow. And I'm like, okay.
What? How? Have you done this before, sir?
And it was his first time planning a church, and it was so wild, and he kind of, he was like, well, let's talk, and we kind of stayed in discussion, and he took me out to a fundraising trip to Cincinnati, or more properly like Louisville, Kentucky, which is just over the river from Cincinnati.
Yeah, over the river, yeah.
And we went to a fundraising trip, and I went to my first mega church, which was like, holy shit, what the fuck is this mess? And we, we're there to ask them for $1 million or something stupid. And so
I was like, I don't know anything that goes into founding a church. Let's be honest.
No clue. No clue. But again, I just walk into places and people go, "Oh, there's a leader," and I'm just like, "Ugh." So I remember being on this fundraising trip with him, and we're up late, and we'd had a couple of drinks and the whole thing. We're in the hotel room, and I was just like, "I have to confess something to you." And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm not sure what I believe. I wasn't raised with. I don't know the Trinity. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what I believe about anything really. I just have like a shit ton of doubts." And he's like, "That's why you're the perfect person to plant this church with me." And I'm just like, really? And he was also just like, he was a PK, pastor's kid. His dad at the time transitioned right after we planted the church. His dad was the chairman of the church planting organization. We planted this church in September of 2012. A month later, Hurricane Sandy hit the city. Yeah,
2012 was a big one for us down in Jersey. The whole flattened trees. Yeah. They're still doing Superstorm Sandy restoration, giving people trees every year to replant. Yeah, there's still people in Brooklyn today whose lives have never bounced back from that. Downtown Manhattan bounced back fine, but even Brooklyn, where people are just working class people, it was a mess. So there were then this brand new church plant with 60 people like going out and mucking out people's basements, and it was wild. The stories are fantastic. So that happened, and then 2 weeks after that, our first family director slept with one of our elders. And then prior to Christmas of that year, so you didn't even make it 3 months. Not even 3 months. So we hadn't even got to December yet. And then my boss's dad comes out as transgender, is let go immediately from the church planting organization. We lost $4 million for our church plant in 36 hours. It was unbelievable. That was the first 3 months, and I was like, holy shit.
Like,
That's why churches need money. We are hemorrhaging money over here, and leadership, and
So, and that was my start, and I was just like, well, this is crazy, right? Like, this whole thing's crazy, and my boss basically then kind of drank himself to death for a couple of years to try and cope with that whole thing. But we then, within 18 months of this brand new, church community, we transitioned it to being the first, like, open and affirming, like LGBTQ open and affirming, evangelical church that existed in New York City. And it's still alive today. And
this was prior to gay marriage even being legal in the United States. For any of the younger listeners who may not remember that history, that was on the scene where people were debating, and there was still a lot of, bullying and harassment and things around that. A lot more people feeling safer in the closet, all that stuff.
Yeah, so we were right on, this was kind of as the liturgists. Did you ever listen to the liturgists podcast? This was Science Mike and Mike Gunga from the band Gunga. They started a project called the Liturgists, and then started their podcast, and that became like the very first like big Christian deconstruction podcast. There were certainly plenty around, but that podcast just and then so all those people were kind of buddies of ours. We had Science Mike out to our church in the early days, and
that makes sense as a collaboration.
So we were very much on the front of like
social justice,
the deconstruction movement, and social justice for queer folks, and our church was also, we did all the things everyone said not to do. We were a multiracial, multi-generational, queer affirming, evangelical church, and everyone said,
just reflect on where you came from.
Right, it was absolutely everything. It was so different to everything.
We turned everything upside down.
Yep. Just ripped up the whole rule book and did it all. So those years of my life, I would never regret that. But they were some of the hardest years of my life. Like I kind of owe the ending of my first marriage to that. I mean, I also like got to New York and drank like I was in college, and I'm in my mid 30s. Like, New York plays hard.
I'm surprised you bounced back.
It was
takes a couple days now.
I know. Yeah, I don't drink much anymore.
Yeah.
Just for me, it's just like 2 max.
It's not worth it anymore.
No, it's not worth it. No. So it was a pretty crazy time in my life. So my exit, I think, was it wasn't just, I didn't exit from Christadelphia quietly, is what I'm saying. I exited in a way where I was then sharing online. I resigned from my Christadelphian ecclesia because I said I've been offered to work at this church. I don't want to cause you guys trouble because I knew that people were going to be like, the whole thing.
You should probably scrap me from your membership list before this gets out.
Take me off the membership list, and the whole thing.
Well, that's what I was wondering, was what formal steps you took too, because sometimes, especially with certain churches, they want it to be very formal, where there's stuff's in writing and there's meetings or whatever.
Yeah, so I wrote to them, and they were just like, "Hey, like you'll always feel like a member, but we understand that you've moved countries, and
that's one reason you're not a member. Yeah, this was pre-Zoom. Can't just Zoom in and be like, I'll just wake up at 1 a.m. so I can attend your services, no problem."
But I was very vocal online, very vocal on social media. I still am about my views. These days I kind of sit in a pretty, socialist, anti-billionaire, fuck Trump, like queer people are here and we belong, and you don't get to say so. And also, immigrants aren't criminals, but the president is. So
don't get yourself deported, okay? I like having you here, Ben.
So I've never been quiet about any of that journey online. I've also done other podcasts, which you've already kind of alluded to, where I talked about the Christadelphians as well and my experiences there. And I definitely was much angrier earlier in my journey. And I think a large part of that has been really coming to terms with the fact that, like, I live with CPTSD, which is childhood or complex PTSD, which is the idea that, over many years of your life, when you are repeatedly traumatized over and over and over again, that you can't point to a singular incident. You can't point to a moment. It is just a crapshoot. And I think that for a lot of religious trauma survivors, like folks, I think, in the Christadelphian group and who've been on this podcast, it's so complicated to unravel it. And it takes so much work And so that's the diagnosis. It's still not in the DSM. It's not officially recognized yet, but I feel
I don't know how it's not.
it will be soon.
It's
no
gotta
doubt,
be
because all the therapists are talking about it. Everyone knows and has understood this. That trauma, as we know it, is also a really complex thing, and it's showing up in incredible. I think everyone in this country is traumatized. Let's be honest. Like
I know the last 10 years have been rough. Let me tell you.
Yeah. So I've never been quiet about those things online, and I think what's been interesting to me is because I had a certain notoriety, infamy, if you will, inside Christadelphia because of my music, and what's weird to me is the people who just still follow that story, and the amount of people that I've had who've slipped into my DMs to come out to me, or to reflect on their own deconstruction stories. It's so tender, and I do not take any of that lightly. My kind of philosophy, I guess, is like we're all trying to walk each other home. We're all trying to journey with each other on the journey to say you're not alone, because life is fucking hard.
It is, and it's harder when you're alone or you feel alone.
Yeah, and I think when you come out of a real tight-knit group like the Christadelphians, where belonging is so intense, so incredibly intense, it's really hard, I think, to feel like you're not doing everything wrong. And I think I see that over and over again in the Christadelphian group. There's some days where I just sort of like have to have a little cry to myself when I read someone's update, because I just feel for people. I'm just like, God, like what a burden to have to fucking carry. Like that's not fair. It really isn't.
Yeah. There's definitely been some heartbreaking posts about, all kinds of fallout that people experience after they leave, and the loss of community and family and stuff there, especially if people have different sexuality or gender things going on too. That still is very tough when you're trying to navigate those relationships and all of that changing.
Yeah, and so hats off to you. You've created a space where people get to tell these stories, and we also get to like laugh about it and not feel alone. And I think that to me is sacred. I think that's kind of like I think my partner now described me as like, I think you're really just a secular humanist. I think really at the end of the day, you believe in people and the power that everybody contains in themselves, both good and evil and all the things.
Which is funny, because I remember them demonizing humanism in exhortations.
100%.
Once again, you've proven yourself to be the devil they feared.
I know. When my partner said that, I was just like, I think I was like a little triggered, because I was like, I've only ever heard bad things. And I've never read any humanist work, honestly.
Yeah. It's not something I hear about that much in just general secular society, as much as Christadelphians kind of make it seem like people are really talking about it, and it's a big risk to us. Yeah. I think mostly secular humanists just like, fuck it, live your life. Yeah, that's fine. I'm on board. That's great. Amazing. Yeah, I love not having to fit in one narrow box as well. Because I feel like if I tried to fit in a box, I would just have a freaking stack that's ready to topple at any time, because there's so many things. And what happens when you're changing and growing? Like, it's never going to fit forever. Exactly. Yeah, we contain multitudes, and I think that there's just so many. I mean, just in the story I've told you this afternoon, there's so many different lanes. Like, if I'd stuck in one of those lanes, I was thinking about, like, if I had got baptized at 13 and somehow grown into be like a good Christadelphian boy, and like I'd probably become a speaker, and I'd probably be right now standing on stage somewhere saying, Zinnia, she's the worst. She's leading people astray. They're spreading gossip about us, trying to get people to leave. But I had a friend tell me something this weekend that like just really got to me, that I thought was really beautiful. And she talked about the difference between choices and decisions. And I think this is something that I hope that people, who listen to podcasts in the Express group will really make sense to them. She talks about choices are just you saying, I don't know this thing, and I just want to try it. Like, it's just kind of like, I've drunk grape juice my entire life, but I've never drunk apple juice. And I'm going to make a choice to try apple juice. Okay. And there should be absolutely no strings on that whatsoever, right? It's just like, I haven't tried something. I'll try something. Okay. Whereas a decision is you then saying, oh, I think I really actually like the apple juice. So I'm going to decide to kind of, continue trying the apple juice. Or I'm going to then decide for a period of time to try the apple juice. And then you get 10 years down, you're like, actually, I don't like apple juice. I prefer grape juice. But I think we've been so demonized with our choices, and so much pressure has been placed on those choices, for instance, with kind of sexuality, you're just trying to test that out, or with your kind of gender journey, like. But it's just quickly. Yeah.
You are allowed. You are allowed to make choices. You are human. You're allowed to try shit. Like, that's our job, you know? That's our job on this planet, is to figure out, like, just try stuff and figure out if it kind of works for us or if it's the thing.
Yeah, there's only one you, so figure out who you are and then do that well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's making those decisions. But I think all the choices along the way are the things that we kind of were limited on the drop-down menu of being a Christadelphian.
Yeah, you didn't have the choices to make.
No. And it was always just like, even if you thought about the choice, you were somehow sinning. You know?
Yeah, because you have to always self-monitor your thoughts, because God knows your thoughts and feelings, right? So even thinking about something could be bad.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's one of those things where I kind of like, that really impacted me this weekend, because I was like, oh my God, I have been judging my choices, and sometimes not even my choices, just my curiosity about the choice, you know, if I thought this. And, you know, depending on where that is, whether that's in really prime kind of areas like gender and sexuality, which is like particularly hot button, which is so stupid. Like, you know, like,
just another part of your life. Yeah.
It's just another part of your life, you know.
So it sounds like there wasn't one thing that was the final straw, but it does sound like someone helped guide you out, your ex-wife, it sounds like. I'm surprised in some way, because you were so deep into it sounds like at the time, at least musically, if not doctrinally. It sounds like you had your doubts and things otherwise. Were you both kind of towing the line about thinking about leaving, and both not feeling it doctrinally then? And then once you left, that kind of allowed you the chance to make choices and explore?
Yeah, I think, you know, I can't speak for my ex necessarily. I mean, I think that I think kind of growing up in a shield household where it wasn't anywhere near as indoctrinating as mine. Like, they didn't sit down to do daily readings. So, like, religion wasn't like the only thing happening in life. You know, as a woman, she went to college, she kind of started university, and she had a job. And at the meeting we went to, women didn't wear hats, and they wore pants, and they were asked to ask questions and preach and all the things, you know, like, which is very, very rare. You know, there were two ecclesias in Sydney where women could preach. So, you know, she was a feminist, and I loved that. That was one of the things I loved about her, is what drew me to her. Is, you know, I enjoy powerful thinking people, particularly women. I prefer the company.
You prefer strong women.
I prefer the company of queer people and women and artists and thinkers and questioners and doubters.
Hey, me too.
You know? So, you know, that's always been my people. I think the first time I heard a woman preach, I was 18 years of age, and I bawled through it, because I was just like, I've been missing a whole lot of the story. You know, it's just like, it only gets taught by men, and so it gets taught in a certain way.
I can only imagine how different it is.
Yeah, it's unreal. So I think, you know, she had her own things. I think that she kind of wasn't, you know, she was never really that keen on church, you know. And she had dated a guy outside of Christadelphia for a while and hadn't gone for a long time before she met me. And then, you know, she met me and we fell in love and got married. And then she was like highly involved with all the things. And she's like, this is all too much for me. Like, I don't want to be this involved. But so she had her own journey. But I think, you know, both of us, I think we're trying to figure out our stuff. I think that's one of the things we do in relationships. We're trying to figure out our stuff with other people. And I have deep regrets about that parts of that relationship, where I feel like I kind of also acted like my dad in so many ways. You know, my obsession with church and faith and that kind of stuff led me away from her at times and away from the relationship. So yeah, we're all trying to figure it out. And I think we were two kids just trying to figure it out together, you know, and we happened to move to New York City and get involved with some crazy stories and some crazy life. And,
yeah, you went on a crazy little side journey there for a while. So you're the only one that's had founding a church immediately after leaving on your thing. And you got really close to fulfilling that starting a cult thing, because you had the opportunity, you had the funds.
I know.
If you had a different personality or some narcissism, sure.
I'm just the music guy, though, right? So, you know, you have to be the person who's preaching to kind of really...
Yeah, you'd have to be at the podium all the time.
Yeah. And I don't have any desire to do that. I mean, I occasionally still say things out loud and occasionally get asked to present things at churches, but, like, it's not something that I have any desire to do, really. Just tell people what to do with their lives. I'm like, the thing I want to tell you to do is go and do your life and figure it out. It's yours.
Yeah, figure it out yourself. Go cry about it. It's fine. All right, so we kind of quickly went through you leaving. So it sounds like it was pretty low stress, to be quite honest. You know, just kind of moved countries, and there you go, sent a letter, and you're done. a lot less drama than a lot of people who end up staying in the same areas, same households, things like that for sure.
Yeah.
So are you ready to talk about life after leaving some more?
Yeah.
We're already kind of into that, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I founded an evangelical church, said evangelical church. I said before we started, we were chatting a little bit, and I said, I've been listening to some of your podcasts where you talk about the songs on your album, and you reference like all of these different cities throughout the United States you've been to and lived in. So you've been journeying before you ended up kind of, it sounds like, settling down a little bit here in Portland now in the United States.
Yep.
So you've also mentioned recently you're talking about some churches you've kind of visited. So what's your current relationship to religion? You just say secular humanist, but you are friendly with other churches? Like, you're not officially have joined any groups or religions or anything, right?
I'm not a member of a church. No. I work for a church currently as a music director.
Okay, so you have some exposure.
Yeah, and I still do a lot of work in churches around inclusion of queer folks and about rooting out bad theology and ideas. And also diversity, equity, inclusion. So that's a huge part of my work now, is kind of really trying to get people to understand that at the very core part of what they do, especially here in the United States of America, there is white supremacy has run through the entire thing. And it has completely corrupted. So, I'm the kind of the wild Aussie, I'm a white guy, right? White guy, blue eyes.
Yes.
But because I have the accent, because I have the outside perspective, I get the privilege, I think, to walk into spaces and talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Being a white guy does help, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, it definitely gives me a little bit of a platform. I can say things that they wouldn't take from a black woman,
Yeah, exactly. You get it.
No, I'm just the angry white guy.
We're used to that. That's always allowed.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Anger is the only thing a man is allowed to really acceptably express.
I get exhausted by it. Men are just always angry, and it wears me out. I'm like, because you can't talk about the real emotions underneath. Like you said, it's a secondary emotion. Okay, are you disappointed? Are you hungry? Do you just need a snack? Like, what do you boys need? Stop yelling at everyone.
Yeah. Put away your guns, Timmy.
Yeah, come on. You just need a nap? Okay, like...
Yeah.
Don't make it everyone else's problem.
Exactly. So I sighed when you asked the question because, like, I'm so deeply sick of church. I'm so deeply... I am. I'm tired.
It's been your life. It has been a box you've lived your whole life in some form. It sounds like it's been a huge...
I turned 46 this year, and I'm just like, fuck, I'm still, in some ways, doing this. Like, it's really, really crazy. But at the same time, I do understand that, like I said, I have the privilege to be able to kind of speak into culture. And I don't think you can live in this country without talking about church. Let me get that straight. Like this whole idea of separation of church and state is such bullshit.
Oh, especially right now.
Bullshit.
Especially right now. Yeah.
But it never was.
Christianity is tyrannical, believe me.
Now the label has been pulled off and we've seen it under the hood the entire time. And I've never been not under the illusion of that. I think when I first walked into the States, it took me 3 months of being here before it's like, oh, wow. Like, this is the biggest cult in the world. Like, America is the biggest cult.
It's Christian nationalism is the thing, because it's both white and conservative Christian.
Conservative Christian.
Because it's got a control based on race, so the power goes to the white people, and control based on sex, where it's men get the power. White men.
Yep.
It's a white men's cult.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's there's nothing else to it. That's as simple as America is. And I know there's so many people here doing incredible work, and I'm grateful to get to walk alongside, like, just people who just blow my mind every day. We're at a political event here in Portland. And
were you in the frog costume?
No, but my partner's ex-husband is down there right now in a hot dog costume. So expect to see a dude in a 6'3" dude in a hot dog costume on the news.
Fantastic. So, you guys are making us proud, just so you know.
Oh my God.
I love seeing Portland in the news where it's like, a local blow-up frog has had a confrontation with Homeland Security. I'm just like, go Portland, keep it weird.
I love the little meme that was just like, Chicago, we will fight you. LA, we will fight you. Portland, you endure a whole week-long improv theater.
Yeah, I saw a post that I shared, and it was like seeing each city give their own flavor to demonstrations almost makes me patriotic again, because you are seeing people rally together with community and with the identity that unites them, and it is beautiful to see the resistance they're having that, because that's the America I always wanted to be in.
Yep.
You know, where people can work together and where they are looking out for each other. They're looking out for people who are being kidnapped and all that stuff. You know, it's not okay.
Yeah, you know what? I was only like last year or the year before, like not that long ago, that I watched It's a Wonderful Life for the first time at Christmas. Right? This is a celebrated Christmas movie. Right? I've heard it my entire life. It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life. I watched it before it was even over. I was so fucking pissed because I'm like, this is a movie about socialism, people. This is what it's about, supporting each other and like breaking down capitalism. It's just like this.
But think about when that was made. That must have been around World War II.
Oh my God! It's just
when you think about the culture at the time, there would have been a lot more of that message of unity and socialism. You know, taking care of your vets when they come back and give them health care as opposed to stripping it.
Right. Yeah, I just was so mad, and I'm just like, that's what you said a minute or two ago about the community who like rallies around each other and everything. Like that's the thing I believe in. That's what I think church is supposed to be doing, and I think it's got off track. It's like it's not about.
Said it should be mucking out basements, helping people.
Exactly. It's not about what day Jesus fucking rose and whether we're coming with whether we're raised with a mortal or immortal body.
Yeah, just arguing over little things
about
forever.
Matters of the atonement. What a hellscape. Stop like arguing about like little jots and tittles of the law and get down to what we're supposed to be. As far as I'm concerned, my first spiritual experience was I was 11 years old. I was sitting in Riverwood in the summer, bored out of my mind in a particular exhortation, and I flipped over to the book of Isaiah and I started with my little pencil covering in justice and widows and orphans and fatherless and oppressed. And I'm like, that is the central story. Like, let's get it straight. Like this is the story that every kind of world religion is trying to say is we should actually love each other and especially
take care of each other. Yeah, especially the vulnerable.
Especially the vulnerable. Like that's it. Like love the Lord your God, heart, mind, whatever. Blah 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 blah. Whatever you want to do with your higher power, whatever thing. But like, if that worship of that higher power, that other thing, doesn't lead you to looking after your neighbor thing, then fuck it. It's actually not religion, in my opinion. So. We've really got to the thing now where I'm on my soapbox.
And once again, we're supposed to be talking about your story in the Christadelphians.
Well, you know, it is a big part of my story now. And I think it's one of those things where people are like, oh, you still have a relationship with church. And some people find that weird on both sides. And I'm just like, yeah, because I've always been someone who didn't, again, back to my story of belonging. I didn't really fit in either of these worlds, you know, and I don't. I don't belong in the church world entirely and never have.
And as you pointed out, it is a venue where you can live according to your values and try to make a positive impact as well and do the thing that you're skilled at and want to do. Yeah,
I think one of the things I'm most proud of is we produced Flamey Grant's first album called Bible Belt Baby, which is about, you know, her being raised as a queer person in Appalachia, in the Bible Belt.
Yep.
And the album came out, it was doing well. And then 10 months into it coming out, Sean Fuchs, you know, what a disaster of a human being, horrible, you know, super spreader worship leader who was holding, you know, mass gatherings during COVID, I'm sure has killed people as a result of that. Sean Fuchs came after Flamey online and Flamey clapped back and said, oh, I'm irrelevant, right? Who's listening to my song? And 24 hours later, you know, her song Good Day was the #1 on the iTunes Christian charts. The album was #1. For a whole day, the face of a drag queen was the little thing on the iTunes charts for Christian music. And again,
that's like, unbelievable.
That I can say in my life, I was part of some of that shift is so phenomenal. Yeah. You know, and I've had that, you know, a few times throughout my life where I can feel like, oh shit, I've actually made a difference here in some ways. And it pissed a lot of people off. But like now
I'm sure I have too.
Yeah, exactly.
With this.
Exactly. You know.
But I still think it's worth it because there's so much, I get so much positive feedback. I get so many people reaching out, emails and DMs and all this stuff, just being like, this has helped me so much. This has been amazing.
Yep.
And so that's, you know, who I'm doing it for. Because it continues to make a difference, and you know I'll keep doing it.
100%, you know. And we tour with Flamey, and we get down the country. She's now a full-time touring musician. It's what she wanted to always do. She's a phenomenal, you know. Before Flamey, she was still a really great songwriter. But the alchemy of drag, music, and Christian, like, or spirituality. Those three things hit, I think, just at a time in the world where we desperately needed that. and going to her shows and watching queer people heal some of their religious trauma and laugh and cry and gather together as family and community and say, like, fuck the government, we've got it.
They come together to say fuck the government.
Yeah, because we need to, because right now
it's a shit show. Yeah,
right now we're marching down a path that we could all seen this in history before. We've read the books, right?
We've seen it. It doesn't end well for a lot of people, and a lot of times we won't even remember their names, but they will have major.
Yeah, and so I may not agree with these people, like the same way I don't agree with a lot of Christadelphians and that kind of stuff, but I'm still going to fight every damn day of my life to make sure that the rights of humanity, that because you exist, you are allowed to do what you want.
I am pro-human rights. I don't want to identify with a lot of boxes, but whichever group aligns with human rights, that tends to be where I will be.
Yeah, that's right. I'm very proud of the city that I call home, Portland, Oregon. I mean, it's incredibly queer. It's incredibly fun and joyful. It probably is the most social city in America. But I love it up here because I kind of feel like it just is a little bit of a throwback. It's a little bit of a kind of, the movie we just talked about.
It's a Wonderful Life kind of.
It feels like we know each other up here, and it's just we're growing our tomatoes in our yard. And I know the other day, my partner was watching Jane Goodall's last words to the world. She did like up to an hour interview that they had recorded a long time ago, and they were waiting for it to die before they kind of put it out.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm just trying to heal the little patch of soil I can here. And I feel like that's it. It's not, like going back to the sick burn Brother John gave me at my baptism. I couldn't give an absolute rip about whether anyone remembers my name. I don't care. I don't want to be famous. I'm not interested. Yeah. I do want to make sure when I leave this place, I leave it a little bit better than I found it.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe how many trees I've planted in my lifetime, both in impoverished neighborhoods. I've gone and volunteered in old cemeteries where they needed replanted, in our yard, every place I've lived and worked. I have been doing that, and that's my little legacy. I will probably be gone before these trees are gone, and just all over. Yeah, that's one of my little legacies that people on the podcast probably don't know. They think this is my legacy. No, it's actually a shit ton of trees. Yeah,
it's beautiful. And we just bought this brand new plot of land, 2 years ago, and I'm amazed I actually get to own a home. I wish everyone had the right to do that. Everyone does have the right.
I wish it was easier if it was accessible.
Everyone should have the right to put a roof over their own head and make a place of their own. Feel like you should be secure. And I've loved this little experiment. It's just like the seasons come and the seasons go. And despite all the horrors of the world, life continues to bubble up, and either that's a sick joke or it's incredibly beautiful.
No, that's like Audrey Hepburn. She's had some famous line that I'll have to put in the notes because I won't remember it offhand, but it was something about, anyone who plants a tree believes in tomorrow or something like that, because that's what it is. It takes time, but you make you try to do something now to make a difference later. And that a new day is coming, and you just try to do your part to make it better.
Yeah, I think it's those little things. That's what hope is. It's just sort of a stubborn insistence to keep growing or keep planting things in the ground, even when it just doesn't feel like anything's going to make a difference.
It feels like the future is very bleak right now, but I focus on my small things. I can offer people some hope and connection through the podcast. I can plant my trees. I can feed my birds. I can offer flowers for the bees. And I can do my little part with my little spot in the world, but I can't do everything, but I can hope to be some inspiration for someone else to do something little too. And together, everyone can do lots of little things to make the world better, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that that Rob Bell first said to me years and years, he said to me,
he said to you while you were crying.
Although, ironically, I did produce a podcast. Rob Bell came on that podcast. I was able to ask him a question, and
that was lovely.
That was kind of a lovely kind of thing. And I've met him in person a bunch of times. But on one of his podcasts, he talked about this basically that if you want to take the Bible just on face value, it's a story that starts in a garden and ends in a network of gardens called a city. And I'm just like, forget all the stuff in between that. That the story about life is we're born into a beautiful and abundant world. And there is enough for everybody. And it's just a handful of people who want to tell you that's not the case. And they're lying.
Absolutely true.
Those people are lying to you. And so everything we can do to pull apart that idea or capitalism, just do what you can, in a small way. It doesn't have to be huge, and don't be caught up in that. Just like live your damn life, enjoy it. Like get some, and I know this is hard. Joy is hard to find these times, but like, I think the resistance of being able to feel delight and desire in your life is also part of it. If you're not alive, how can we ask other people to come alive?
And to not just be angry all the time, and to not just drive more wedges with everyone, because that only helps them, I would say.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
all us versus them. That's how cults operate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we have to be able to see the humanity in each other, all of us.
Yep, I love that.
So I also heard that you had started doing something called Heathen Happy Hour, which I'm kind of mad that that's not the name of this podcast.
Well, the podcast was called Heathen Podcast. And then when the pandemic hit, myself and Karen, my partner, and Flamey, Flamey didn't even exist before in the pandemic. We'd moved in together. Matthew and Chris got married when the four of us had moved into a house together a month before the pandemic hit. And so we just started going live every Thursday night. And we had 2 weeks where we just didn't know what we were doing, but then we called it Heathen Happy Hour, and we came up with these themes. And the first one it always had to be 3, it had to be alliteration. So it was Disney, drag, and Dixie Chicks before they changed their name to the Chicks.
Okay.
And we all got in drag that thing. I also see a photo of me with a big sparkly beard and the whole thing.
Sparkles.
And, it didn't stick with Karen and I, but it obviously stuck with Flamey, and a drag queen was born. But we did that every Thursday night for 16 months straight. We went online and just kind of built community and sang songs, and it was an absolute ridiculous riot. And that really is kind of that was the genesis of the Flamey story. And also Karen and I had only really just got together a little bit before then, and we have a project called Story and Tune, which is now. I
saw that as well, and you're going through your albums and stuff online and seeing what you've done.
Yeah, our little tagline is trauma-informed harmony. So it tells you what kind of nerds we are. But we're often out and about touring with Flamey as well, and we kind of try and bring these discussions to the stage, and we try and talk about trauma, and we try and talk about relationships and all the thing. So that's an invitation to like anyone out there. I would love to meet some of these people in person. Like, let's do some healing together.
There's one ex-Christadelphian that moved to Portland who I think would love a trauma-informed music show. So I think you'll hear from at least one when this comes out.
All right. Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. We are coming up the West Coast next March and April with Flamey again, and coming back to Portland to bring our trauma-informed show.
Fantastic. Well, if you ever come to the East Coast, please come to New Jersey and not the city. But so I can come see you, because I don't want to go to the city.
I get it. Yeah.
We've got plenty of spaces over here. We got plenty of venues on our side of the river.
Oh yeah.
You have a lot of stories, so I'll ask you this, and it's okay to say no. But do you have any spooky stories for me?
It's spooky season, right? Yeah.
Ghost stories, anything?
I've had a couple experiences in my life. One, again, at a Bible school, where
haunted Bible school.
I have no idea which one this particular was. It was linked to one of the stories I told earlier, but I kind of went out for a walk at night outside kind of Rathmines thing, and I kind of went to the water, and I remember feeling particularly overwhelmed and emotional. I don't know if I'd been through a breakup or something, but I was like feeling really just really down about everything, and I was like really just trying to be less like, why can't God speak to me? Like, what is my problem?
Oh no.
Because I think I was that kid who just desperately wanted like something, a burning bush moment or something.
I think a lot of people have felt that. They're like, what happened to the Old Testament God where he'd like come to you in a dream and be like, hey, it's going to be okay, bro?
Yeah.
What happened to that guy?
Yeah, what happened there? So I'm just desperately asking for something to kind of give me a thing. And I remember that there was actually an earthquake that happened that night. Like really. And I'm standing by the water, and I feel this surge of something, which I didn't know because, like back then there's no cell phones or anything like that either.
Yeah, you didn't get the little ping, earthquake alert.
Yeah, the whole earth shifted, and I looked up, and across the lake, because it's right on the side of a lake, behind the mountains, there was this flash of light. So I don't know if some power plant or something actually kind of like exploded because of the earthquake or something. But then I had this moment where I just completely, I think I hallucinated essentially. And I kind of thought it was going to be the end of the world. Like I thought that I saw like warplanes coming over and because it was an old Royal Air Force base where Rathmines Bible School was.
Yes.
But I had this whole freak out, and then I looked over my shoulder, and there was like soldiers like climbing over the things towards me, and I just like I flipped out, and I went running back into the camp. I was like, oh my god! I just yeah, it was an intense experience.
So it really felt like you saw them?
I really thought I saw like Armageddon. I thought I saw the end of the world happen. And it just turns out it was like a tremor and maybe some power plant exploding. And then just like my very tired adolescent brain.
Because the last part, I'm like, did you see something? Or like, was it like really shadowy? Like...
Honestly, it looked like army guys, crawling on their bellies, coming out, and it could have just been shadows moving or something.
They're like, let's start with the Christadelphians. That's where Armageddon starts, is this one camp. We got to snipe them. They're crawling in.
Yeah, it just was wild. And it almost just felt like some like rift in time.
I thought you were going to see like an angel. No, straight Armageddon.
I just saw war.
Yeah. It was like, come this way, Ben. We're going to save you. It was like, I didn't make the cut. Oh, shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When the rapture was supposed to happen like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, in September.
I was just like, could you take them all? I'd be happy to wake up in a world without all these people.
You can take the Christian nationalists. That's fine. We'll rebuild.
I don't want to be raptured there. No way.
You can leave me. It's fine.
Yeah, so funny.
Wow, well, that was interesting. I wasn't sure where that was going at all, and that wasn't where I expected it to go at all.
That's why it's spooky.
Thank you for that, though. I appreciate you sharing. This is a good podcast for stories that don't usually come up in everyday conversations. So
Exactly.
If you want to tell me here, this is a good outlet for it. So let's move into some of the winding down questions. Do you have any advice that you would give to someone who's considering leaving or has recently left, besides live your own life? Because you've already given that pretty good advice out there.
I think as much as you can, be kind to yourself. I'm still learning this a lot. Realize that it's a process. Mm-hmm. It isn't something you can do overnight. I think as we learn so much judgment as Christadelphians, incredible internal judgment. Like you said, I think earlier about how you just like you are kind of already trying to anticipate your thoughts and kind of figure out if any thoughts are any good. Mm-hmm. So I think understanding that internalized judgment takes time to kind of go away. And I still have days where that stuff is really difficult for me, despite the fact that people will probably look at me and go, oh, that's a really non-judgmental person there. Because of what I do. I think what I'm trying to do is atone a little bit for some of my stuff. And then I think the other thing about it, and I mean this very seriously, is seek professional help.
I think pretty much every guest comes back to that of, therapy could help.
Yeah, therapy. I think for complex PTSD, I really do think there's a lot of research out there now saying that my experience with Lexapro is almost normal for people with complex PTSD, that kind of getting on some sort of chemical to help you kind of regulate, to help you actually get some of the good chemicals, because your brain has been trained to see all the good chemicals as bad, and we've rewired our neural pathways.
Yeah, because it starts at such a young age. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, that things which should be pleasurable, aren't. I mean, I've heard all sorts of horror stories from people who have been very faithful and waited till they're married to then finally have sex, and then
they have shame that they can't get over.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of purity culture trauma, they call it now.
So much purity culture. And I don't know if some of that stuff is possible to do without some sort of chemical intervention. And so I think, I'm not saying, go do the thing, but like do your due diligence and kind of talk to some professionals and be really straight with them.
And maybe a psychiatrist, so you could have access to medication if that might be helpful for you to try.
Yeah, I think if you haven't heard of CPTSD or complex trauma, mention that to your professional, because I do think that more people are trained for that these days. And I think kind of saying I was raised in a very religious household, high demand is a word that gets used often, high demand community, or, you can say cult. Like you don't have to feel any shame if you kind of feel that. I did for a very long time, and I still have all my families all still in there. They're never pleased that I say it, but like, that was my experience. So your experience is your experience, and you get to own that. And I think the third thing is all of those things should be leading you towards a sense of joy. It should be that. And as someone who, take it from me, who I have spent 44 and a half years on the planet with incredible depression and anxiety, and had no idea that it was actually possible to feel like really, truly like happy. I have had over the last, year and a half being on medication, and I think actually had some, had quite a few experiences where I feel genuinely happy. And I think that's the point. I think
a lot of survivors will unfortunately relate to that, especially people that had a lot of childhood trauma where it was about survival and not thriving. I think a lot of them will relate to being able to leave and slowly align with your authentic self, and then from there build a life that starts to allow for more moments of joy and genuine connection with people.
Yeah. And I think it, to me, also come back to the complex PTSD is therapy can be helpful, but I think it also starts to get to a bit of a law of diminishing returns at some point, because you're trying to fight words with words. And I think what you need to do is start to trust the soft animal of your body. You let the soft animal love what it loves, and so I think find the things. And I know that some of those things are scary because you've been told they're bad, but you know what, they're not all inherently bad in themselves. And I admit on this podcast, I drank myself almost to death in my 30s, and definitely over medicated, that kind of thing. But there ain't nothing bad about a glass of whiskey. It's gorgeous. It's yummy as hell, and if you want to go out and hug some trees and go do nature works and get off the grid and the whole thing, great. There's nothing bad about that. There's nothing bad about getting a little bit high on weed and kind of experiencing something. There's nothing inherently bad about any of these things.
Like you said, it's all about just making choices, and just, again, exposure can be a huge thing. Even just think of it as exposure therapy. I had to do that with myself with some things because I just had a lot of issues. Some of it related to my neurodivergence, where I had to give myself exposure therapy to be a more functional person. And that was just a choice I made. I had my own consent to do it. But some of us kind of have to do that even after we leave, to be like, do I want to go into another church? That could feel scary as hell for some people. Oh, yeah. But you can go in there and you can tell yourself, I can leave if I want. I don't even have to sit here through the whole freaking service if I don't want, and I don't have to talk to anyone. You have to take back your autonomy, and it can be empowering to choose places to go and things to do. Because like you said, it doesn't always have to be just words forever. I think a lot of healing can happen in relationships, not necessarily romantic, but making friendships. I've made friends with tons of neighbors over all the different places I've lived. I think that can be really healing too. So I think doing things in your body, like somatic things. That's getting very popular now. Yeah. I did dance.
Oh, huge. Run. Yeah. My therapist told me, it's just because I'm so awkward about my body. And she was just schedule some time when no one's home or in the shower and just dance for you and for no other reason than just feeling your body move. If it feels uncomfortable, great, but just try it out. And so I think that idea, because we get so stuck in our heads, and ideas and theology and high demand really does mean that we are just second guessing all our thoughts. But your body knows what it knows. It knows what it likes.
And they say more trauma starts residing in your body, so that's actually supposed to be helpful. Any sort of movement, whether it's a more rigid weightlifting kind of thing or a more fluid movement like dance and stuff, can help you feel more of an emotional release. Some people have said they've cried during yoga because it helps release emotions that they didn't realize they were holding on to so much in their body. So that's something else to think about for sure.
I found breath work absolutely transformative. I had some incredible experiences on breath work. One of which I came into is my friend who was kind of studying to do certification, and it was basically can I use you as a test case? I'm like, sure. So I got therapy for free. I'm like, hell yeah. But I came in one day to the session. I told him I was having this really horrible week where I had friendships completely blow up, and people tried to cancel me online. It was a doozy of a week, and I was feeling some kind of way about all of it, and was really agitated. Wasn't sleeping, the whole thing. And so I told him that I'm just listen, I'm coming to this session. I don't know if I can even really do it today, but we've put this on the calendar, and I want to show up as I am. Yeah. And for about 15 minutes, basically this was all of a Zoom, and he would he'd put some music through and pipe his voice, and then he would just guide you through, okay, slow breaths here, and then you would increase the pace and do the whole thing. For about 15 minutes, I just fought with my body, just like, just not gonna get into this. This sucks, blah, blah, blah. And then I had this like moment. Maybe this is a spooky story too. I had this moment where it all clicked. And what I saw was out in front of me, 20 feet out in front of me, there was a shield. And that shield was something I had built and designed. That shield was designed to protect me from other people. It was my self-defense mechanism. And it was out there in front of me. And I knew I could see other people on the other side of that shield, but I couldn't really kind of tell who they were because the shield blocked the vision from my thing. But I could see the words coming out of my mouth, and the words were manifesting as arrows. And they were hitting the shield and bouncing back and stabbing me. And then he's like, okay, come back into your body. And I was just like, what the fuck?
Where did I go?
Where did I go? and it was so wild. And I then talked to him about it. I was like, oh my God, what does this mean? And I went to talk to my therapist the next day about it. And she's like, this is profound, you know? She's like, you're seeing
People pay a lot of money for chemicals to get that.
Right. I was entirely sober, like lying on that bed breathing. Like, but it was this manifestation of my self-defense mechanism that I had built because I thought it was designed to defend me, but it was doing the exact opposite, and it was hurting me. So all that to say is, like, some of these weird things you might think are weird, you know, like people are, oh, this is witchy, oh, this is like woo woo. Don't fucking judge. Don't call any of those things what they are. Don't worry about it. Just try some shit. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's totally fine. Like, it's once again down to
That's
choices.
how I am.
Just make a
Just
choice.
be open-minded.
Move on.
You never know.
Yeah.
And you don't have, like you said, you also don't have to stick with everything forever. You don't have to commit to everything.
Yeah.
A lot of times just listen. Just listen. People who think very different things about me, about whatever, had very different life experiences. It's just interesting to hear their lives. I don't need them to become me. I'm already me. I don't give a crap. You know?
You don't need to agree with them. You don't need to go to the church. You don't need to join their... You don't got to do anything. It doesn't matter. But it's interesting. People are interesting. Stories are weird. Yeah. You know, you learn something every single time.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Yeah. So we're down to the final questions. Do you have anything that you'd recommend? Music, podcasts? You've already started recommending things, mentioning things throughout. Anything specific that you've found helpful or you've found since that you think might be helpful for someone who is leaving or has left the Christadelphians?
It's funny because I think, you know, yes, my journey leaving the Christadelphians was not, it wasn't as traumatic and as hard as some other things. I would say, like in 2018, when my life blew up, when my marriage fell apart, when I left the church that I founded, I think that was so much harder. And so that's
understandable. You lost a lot there.
I lost a lot overnight. I went up in this ranch in Texas, and it was amazing. 5 miles.
Is that when you were naked and unafraid, sir?
Naked and unafraid. That's the one. You got it. You can listen to that on Heathen Podcast.
I just honked.
We're having no fun at all here.
We never do.
And I wrote a song called "Come to Bed, My Darling" about that experience as well.
Very sad song. Come to bed, my darling. Sing little lullabies, man.
It's a sad little lullaby. It sounds like it sounds like you're trying to woo someone to bed, but it's more about loneliness and isolation and kind of what that feels like. I read a book in that period called Learning to Walk in the Dark by Barbara Brown Taylor. She is a Christian, so for those of you who might be triggered by that stuff, I understand. But she's like also an incredible scholar who's read everything, and that book is right across the gamut of like philosophy and psychology and the whole thing. And
that's kind of fun. Yeah.
It is one of the most beautiful, like, basically it's her essay saying, like, we've been obsessed with, you got to be in the light, you know, like religion and spirituality is all like seeing all the positivity. And she's just like, every cultural story, like a lot of Bible stories and every like religion, every other culture has these stories about what happens at nighttime, what happens in the darkness, what happens in spooky season, right?
Spooky season! I got the Stay Spooky shirt on!
these transformative experiences. And so it's her little treatise to basically say, befriend the darkness in yourself, around you in the world, learn to walk in the dark. It's so beautiful, and I recently reread it again, and I've talked about it. I even preached about it at church, like in the last year. We're taught to avoid what we think are negative, dark emotions, right? They're just emotions.
Yeah.
It's not good or bad. It's not happy is good and sad is bad. That's stupid. But we think this very binary kind of way.
I also think it helps capitalism.
Oh, you go and buy some shit, or take some shit, or drink some shit.
Yeah, that's usually the solution. We'll start customizing your advertising to your grief. Targeted ads, grief away.
It's so depressing, but so true.
So true.
So yeah, Learning to Walk in the Dark, I think, is just it's not a hard read. It's kind of short and it's beautiful. And also I think makes a beautiful case around like the ecology of the world and what we're doing with light pollution. That I think is...
Turn off your lights at night, kids.
Turn off your lights, yeah.
It's bad for the insects. It's bad for the birds. It's bad for everyone.
Bad for your circadian rhythms.
Yep.
Just be in the dark.
Or just use red lights.
Yeah.
Red light is much better for you. Look into it if you don't know about it.
Yeah, so I love that part of the book. That I kind of felt like she was making a larger case for how we all need to learn this as a species as well. So that's a beautiful book. I'm sure there's multiple things that will be helpful, but I feel like that's the one that's off the top of my head.
Awesome. Sounds great. And then did you want to plug anything about your music? If people wanted to find you, support you, anything like that? You've kind of mentioned bits and pieces throughout, so. Yeah,
you can find me at Ben Grace Music, anywhere on the internet, bengracemusic.com or Instagram, all the things. You can slide into my DMs. I love hearing from people, and please share me your stories. I love those. And I'm also in a duo called Story and Tune, also Story and Tune everywhere. For the Aussies, that's Tune. Tune.
U-N-E.
Story and Tune everywhere on the internet. Yeah, come and find us. We're out there. We're not kind of touring right now, but we'll be touring up the West Coast in March and April of next year. And we're always around. So yeah, a lot of kind of what you write about is about these kind of stories on my Ben Grace album, my first and only so far. As if Words Could Heal the Wounds is the title of the record. It's bookended by two songs. The first one is 1,000 Times that I think really kind of talks very straightforwardly to kind of my religious trauma. And I think anyone who's kind of related to that actually is, that's the theme song of another podcast, which is wild. And then the last song on the record called A Little Story, which is my critique about religion, telling this tiny little story about good and bad. That is also the theme for the Ex-Mormon Book Club podcast, which is
Ex-Mormon Book Club.
Isn't that cool?
Wow, you've really spread out all over different religions, evangelicals connected with the ex-Mormons.
I never really. It was just because I was a guest on the podcast, and she loved the song so much, and she's like, "Can I, use this as a theme?" I was like, "Heck yeah!"
That's fantastic.
So yeah, there's a lot on that record that's about kind of that, and I think that some folks might find it cathartic.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure some people will be interested in hearing more about your music. We've mentioned it throughout. So again, if you want to find that, you can go to Ben Grace Music. You can also just Google him like I did and scroll around, listen to the podcast you did explaining the songs, which I really enjoyed. It also had like drafts of it, originals. There's one where there's like tambourine in that version that you shared on there, but it wasn't in the final version that went to the album. So it was interesting hearing all kinds of different stuff and hearing you explain some of the meaning behind the lyrics and things. So I thought it was interesting. So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today on the podcast that we didn't get to? Anything that you thought about that you wanted to loop back to?
No, I think that, what I'm getting from you and, I've got from you in the past, but just talking to you today is just realizing how much love you have, and I hope people feel that. I know that there'll be people that feel defensive about this thing here, but I feel like this is a project of love. And I think the reason why I said yes to coming on was because we're all learning to love ourselves in different incarnations. And I've certainly, I think, been quiet for the last few years, really, about some of my growth. And I think there's moments in the story where you're not sure. I've been in this place, and And so my default when I'm not sure is to shut my mouth, but right,
which is usually a good thing.
yeah. But I think I think when we share our stories and we tell everybody like, hey, like you're loved, like you deserve to be loved, and you are loved just as you are.
Yeah, just be who you are. You don't have to be something else and pretend to be something else or strive to be something you're not.
Yep, 100%. Just be authentic, and it's good. I love it. I love watching them be authentic. It's absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, being around people who are like that, like you said, being close to like queer communities and people that have been through real big transformations, which often happen to people who leave religious trauma as well. It's really beautiful to watch people blossom into someone who has figured themselves out and also often has a lot of empathy because they've been through some really hard things. It is a really lovely thing.
Yep, absolutely. So go be yourself.
Go be yourself. That's today's lesson, your main takeaway. Well, thanks again for coming on the podcast, Ben. I do hope that you'll be back, but it was fun to get to hear your story. I knew there's definitely going to be some fun stories. I was really curious because you've dropped little bits in different podcasts, so I was like, I gotta ask him about all these different things. So it was fun hearing a fuller story of some of your background, hear what you're up to now. And then thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. That's all for today. So I hope everyone's feeling inspired to live your truth, and stay tuned for our next episode. Bye, everyone. Thank you to everyone who has helped make this episode of the podcast possible. Today's episode was edited by me, Zinnia. I'd also like to thank Al Kroons for creating our intro music and the ex-Christadelphians that submitted audio for the intro music. If you'd like to join our community, you can find us at the group for ex-Christadelphians on Facebook. You can also follow our social media on Facebook and Instagram at Life After Leaving Podcast. If you'd like to come on the podcast, reach out to me at lifeafterleavingpodcast@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving a rating and review or sharing this podcast with a friend. That's all for today. Thanks, and see you next time.